All right, we'll call this City Council regular meeting agenda for Monday, September the 9th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. to order. If you would all please join as our Mayor Pro Tem Carbone leads us in an invocation, followed by the pledges by Councilmember Byron.
Thank you, Mayor. If y'all would bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all our blessings. Thank you for another beautiful day. Be with the deliberations tonight. Help everything to be honoring and pleasing to you. Be with those that are serving overseas, here domestically, and those that are serving here in Pearland, and all our first responders. Please keep them safe, and be with their families as well when they're not home. Be with everybody tonight and get us home safely. And thank you again for all our blessings. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for joining in, and welcome everybody to City Hall as we partake in this council meeting. Just want to take a quick moment, a little liberty. We have Tropical Storm Francine out in the Gulf, out in the Bay of Campeche. All indications right now is it's on a track that will take it to Louisiana, but we should get some rain starting late tomorrow and into Wednesday. And as always, we want to keep our eyes and ears peeled, on these storms, as we saw with Beryl. They can take last-minute dips and dings and go somewhere else, and this thing will be going too close to the coast and our coastline not to take it seriously. So over the next 24 to 48 hours, expect some rain and those types of things. Our own emergency operations will be gearing up and being ready, and our city will tackle these challenges as we go through it. But I just want to take the moment to make sure that everybody get ready at home, and let's pray that it goes past us, but it's also pray for our neighbors in Louisiana should it go in there. So with that, roll call and certification of quorum. Madam Secretary, I'll certify we have a quorum present as all members are present and accounted for in the chamber. So with that, we'll move to citizens' comments. We had several people turn in comment sheets. I think one or two maybe for general comments. Everything else is on a specific item. We'll take the general comments now, and under the items in which they were signed up for, we will take those comments at that time. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem, if you'll introduce our speakers.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. First up is retired Colonel James Henderson. If you would go to the podium, you give us your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And thank you for being here.
You'll also see a timer up on the screen, just to
Yes, sir.
keep you in sync. There you go.
Retired Colonel Henderson. I live on Chantel Street. I want to talk about the construction on 518 at the intersection of Chantel into the Hazeldale Estates. As you know, there's a lot of development there. It's good development, good businesses. There's 8 businesses at the intersection. 6 of them have been built in the past several years. But I feel like there's a lack of support infrastructure, specifically water retention, traffic flow, and some thoroughfare coming off of 518. So I went and looked at the plot at the Community Development Center. The coffee roasters is the most recent development. It's great business, no problem there, but they're done. They've got the drainage set for Mary's Creek. It's draining into Mary's Creek. That building is done. But the retention has not been expanded. That is not done. And so as you stated, we got a tropical storm coming and a hurricane. And so what I looked at in the Community Development Center is not what exists out there. It looks like they've just scraped a little landing pad for some follow-on work. Additionally, the conveyance in Mary's Creek, somebody took a mini excavator out there and dug up some soil, and it's all laying out there. And so it's going to get washed out over the next 3 days. So number one, retention and conveyance I think we're behind in keeping up with the development out there. And so I'm the first house in. I sit right across from the retention pond, and it is not complete based on what I looked at in community development. As far as traffic flow, it's just a traffic light. I think it's time to put a light out there. When I moved here, it was great not having a light, but nobody can get in or out of that subdivision anymore. There's 8 businesses at that intersection. There's a lot more intersections that don't have near that concentration of business. So it's hard to get in and out. There are wrecks there, and somebody's going to get hurt. Lastly, traffic thoroughfare coming off of 518. It's basically a turning basin now for all the vehicles that want to go to one of those establishments. I've had them turn around in my yard, not in my driveway, but in my yard, amazingly. And so, I looked into speed bumps. You got to go to the police department to get speed bumps. And I was told, when I picked up the application over at the police department, it's basically impossible to do something. So anyway, that intersection at Chantel, 518, entering into the subdivision, I think we need to catch up on the support infrastructure for all those wonderful businesses that have been built there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Trent, can we just introduce this to our traffic committee, and let's keep him in the loop as to how we move that forward?
Yes, sir. We'll take a look at all those issues and get back with Mr. Henderson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. John Fisher. Same thing, if you go to the podium, give us your name and address for the purpose of the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, John Fisher, 2938 Helmsley Drive. Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm here tonight because I think it's valuable to hot wash my last 5 years with the Animal Services section, both to celebrate and as a matter of public record. Prior to 2020, the city's live release rate hovered around 40 to 50%, with up to 80% of all cats being euthanized. The challenge before us was enormous, but in 2020, the direction from the city was clear: achieve a 90% live release rate. No additional staff was provided to accomplish this goal, yet we did. In 2020, the direction was to increase the live release rate again. Additionally, no staff or resources were allocated, but again, we achieved that goal. By 2022, the city's direction was to maintain the new benchmark live release rate while overseeing construction of a new shelter. We were also directed to only euthanize pets as a last act of compassion and to no longer euthanize for space. Again, no additional staff were allocated, yet we accomplished this goal as well. In 2023, the challenge grew even greater. We were tasked with moving into a new shelter that tripled capacity and square footage. We were asked to maintain the benchmark live release rate and eliminate the euthanasia of feral cats without limiting service. The only additional resource provided was one additional animal control officer. Despite that, again, we met that goal. In 2024, the city directed us to operate the larger shelter, often at or over capacity, while continuing to meet the previous benchmarks. We were also tasked with ensuring that every pet was sterilized before it left the shelter. Unfortunately, due to overwhelming demands, 4 dogs were euthanized for space that year. Despite this, we met every other goal at no additional cost to taxpayers, saving the city tens of thousands of dollars. We met the amazing benchmarks by finding more ways to help rather than limiting service. Pearland sets an incredibly high bar, never before achieved by the city of Pearland. In Pearland, we set objectives aimed at doing the right thing, even when it's hard. We not only navigate minefields, but we remove the mines so that our future helpers don't have to navigate those. My hope as we pass the baton to new leadership, the city will provide more adequate support for animal services with a focus on the well-being of the people on the front lines. The wellness of our helpers is critical for the long-term success, and I urge you to prioritize that in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And that's all we had for general comments, Mayor.
Okay, so all other comments are tied to specific items. John, again, thank you so much for your comments tonight. Thank you for your service to the city of Pearland and really putting our animal services, animal control services where we are today. So with that, we will move forward in the agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? D and H. Any additional? Seeing none, for the matter of public, I'm not sure what was printed and put on the table, but item I as well was pulled completely from the agenda. We will not be taking item I up at this time. So with that, Mr. Koza, if you would present. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Byram had asked for one quick point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say for the record and put it in the minutes for the evening, happy birthday to my oldest daughter. She turns 17 this evening. So I just wanted to tell her happy birthday because I can't be there with her.
There you go. Thank you. So with that, Mr. Koza, would you present consent agenda items A through H with the exception of D and H?
So just D and H, that's what I want to make sure. All right, sure will. The consideration and possible action of consent agenda items A through H with the exception of D and H. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavadilla,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. With that, Mr. Koza, if you would present item D.
Certainly, Mayor. Consideration possible actions, second and final reading of ordinance number 1633. So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Quick staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of the ordinance to adopt the Pearland 2040 Comprehensive Plan. A comprehensive plan for a city guides the future land use and development in a city and is the overarching plan for our future. This plan has been through significant public, planning and zoning, and council input sessions over the past year plus. Following the first reading, we have incorporated the updated Pearland Prosperity Plan and modified some of the language in the area of 6.2 regarding accessory dwelling units in certain zoning districts based on the council input at the first reading of this ordinance. So all those changes have been incorporated and the plan is now ready for final adoption. Thank you.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, did you pull this? Koza? Mr. Koza?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, on this item right here for the consent agenda, we've got a pretty good attendance today for today's meeting, but most staff and council members know my issues with ADUs and the issues that can arise from them. So in the comprehensive plan, from what our meeting was last time, I'm not so sure that what we were after or what the vote was, we accomplished that in this reading. So my thought on it is to vote this down and have a discussion on this item so that we can rework it to get it where it needs to go.
Just the ADU part?
Well, if we can line item that out, I would be fine with that. I don't know, Darren, would we be able to just line item that one out? Because I can make a motion to that effect.
That's the council's discretion. If there's something you want to remove from the comprehensive plan, the draft or the one that's before you for the second reading, you can still do that.
Okay, so then I'll make a motion to remove the ADU sections in the comprehensive plan, to have a discussion to further work through the issues on that. So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to amend the comprehensive plan that's in front of us to remove the sections on ADUs.
Yes, sir.
All right, discussion on the amendment in front of us.
Would it make more sense to table this for tonight, come back and have a more in-depth discussion?
We can.
I think instead of, I don't want to pass it and then have to come back and amend it, but I don't know, does staff have an opinion on that?
We've operated without it this long.
So, Vance, you want to weigh in there?
So I go back and forth, trying to take a moment. Like you said, there's a lot of people here, and I typically shoot from the hip, right? So to be honest, staff would like the comprehensive plan discussion to come to an end. And that said, I don't want to say remove ADUs altogether. I don't want to say that, but at the same time, I really don't want to say more discussion on it. We've gone back, we've had more discussion, we've received citizen input. If striking it from the comp plan would be the most efficient thing at this point, I mean, we don't have funds for Kimley Horn anymore. We've kind of exhausted that resource when it comes to making another round of edits. And so, yeah, if removing ADUs from the comp plan would get it done tonight, I think that's what I would advocate for, versus going back for another round of discussion and another round of revisions through Kimley Horn.
So maybe to follow on that, I think the last discussion we had at the first reading was to make some tweaks in the language regarding ADUs. I think where previously it was a little more nebulous on what zoning districts, and this is designated that as we move forward and we get into the zoning part and looking at the UDC, Unified Development Code, and the zonings in there, that would be studied further to provide, where we would permit those within certain zoning districts or not. And that's where the current language was amended to. So I don't know if that meets what you're asking for, or if it's to remove it altogether. I mean, we're not doing the zoning tonight, so this just says that they're basically that middle market housing, that there is some potential need for that, but then we would consider that within certain zoning districts moving forward. It doesn't actually approve anything, but I just want to, we had that discussion, we made those changes, so I'm trying to understand where we didn't meet the need of where we wound up last time.
It's still pretty vague and still open. Right here, it's got a whole list. I've never seen one of these plans with, as far as how detailed it is on the focus group. Normally, it'd be a little bit, I guess, broader than what it is right here. So, I wasn't looking to completely remove it, but just have a discussion to the language on 6.9 for the focus group. It goes through this, and I've never seen that before in any plan before, that here's how the focus group is going to be detailed. And that wasn't, from our last discussion, that wasn't discussed. It was from basically what ADUs can do to existing neighborhoods when you have one go awry. It's all fun and games until it goes awry, and the neighbors immediately around them will be screaming, because I've already experienced similar issues with a short-term rental.
So is your goal on this to remove focus group? Is that what you have?
No, not to remove it, but I think it doesn't say, it says create a focus group. It would be, to me, more if we as a council said, here's the group that we want.
So Vance, would that focus group be part of the UDC rewrite process?
Yes, sir. And the comment is, I think, meant to be a gesture towards making sure this fits us the right way, and being the focus group that we want to give the input, so that we get a document that represents what the community wants when it comes to ADUs. But if we need to be more specific in there, I think the focus group language has been in previous versions, just to be transparent there. But yeah, during the UDC process, we'll put together the actual people, just similar like to Old Town. So y'all made suggestions. Y'all made suggestions for Old Town Stakeholder Committee, and that's who I bird dogged down to get on that group.
Which I understand that process, but we stand here today when Member Berry, who's no longer with us, in a tree ordinance, we've still not made much headway, and we keep pushing everything under a UDC rewrite. It can get old when the same story is told over and over and over again.
I understand. I think in fairness, the UDC is the how we do a lot of these things, and so completely understand when it comes to the timing and the waiting. But
and I agree with you on the how. This is the foundation for the how. And so if we're not comfortable for that, then we start off on a shaky foundation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we approved the UDC tonight, so we Oh, it was.
Well,
not-
we're going
it
to
was-
approve the.
We hopefully at the next meeting we'll approve the UDC to move it forward.
Right.
So I'll say this: I think the legislature is going to solve this issue anyway by mandating ADUs. But until then, we'll see what they have to. And I get where
In the
where
fight,
you're coming from.
in the fight for the short-term rentals, I was told pretty straightforward that there was nothing we could do. And basically what it did is it upended our zoning rules. This right here, Patrick Ibarra, our moderator for our strategic planning, told us that this would take single-family residential zoning and make it multifamily.
Right.
So that means our largest by number category would upend. So if that's what we're going to go to, and that's what the legislature wants.
Actually, I think listening and hearing what we're talking about here, I think if taking it out resolves and puts the comprehensive plan in play, keeps the rest of it intact, moves it forward. While we're going through the UDC rewrite, we're going to have a legislative session. And if the legislative session mandates ADUs, to your point, then we can address it, because we're not going to be through with the UDC rewrite before the legislative session is over next June. And so, we can address that as we're going through the UDC rewrite. We can even come back and do a focus group. I would leave this recommended actions in here, and we would still do these focus groups and understand how our community wants to, resolve if there's any legislation that comes down that mandates it. And we get the best of both worlds. We move forward now with the comp plan, with the exception of that, and then we address ADUs in the event that legislature does something.
Which I'd be fine with that. If we're going to leave this in there, I've got an amendment that I'd like to do to 6.9. Go ahead.
I have a question. So who creates the focus group for the city?
So staff reaches out to, either folks that we know that work in the industry appropriately and would be interested on projects like this, just like Old Town. We get asked to be on that, and then like each of you know, I've asked each of you to provide names, and all of y'all have done that, and we just call and see if they're willing to serve.
So is the focus group then presented to council?
I don't know that they're presented to council like the stakeholder committee. That's y'all make those recommendations, and then who says they'll serve joins us.
So
I've got an amendment that would address what.
Yeah,
you're
but
asking right there.
we've done committees that are council committees where we put input and we set them apart. We've done it various ways. The Old Town side is a little bit larger. It's a little bit different animal than what we would normally do. Here, I would have a focus group, but I would also have a little more of a laser committee on certain issues to go, and I think that's where, the council member is headed.
So if
that's before we do, let's dispense of the other.
If you want me to read this, just so if it's palatable to everybody, it's 6.9. That's what it is. So
go ahead and read it, but let's dispense of one, and then we'll come back.
I agree. But that way, if it impacts the vote one way or the other. So basically, what I'd like to do is if we shoot this down and we amend the focus group, I'd like it to say to create a city council appointed focus group to develop recommendations for middle market housing regulations.
Okay, that puts it back on us as okay.
Mayor, I'm curious, how many ADUs are we looking at a year? How many people come and ask to build these a year?
The question was how many ADU type applications or people coming in looking for on an annual basis.
So barring the one that y'all are seeing tonight, you have seen 2 in 8 years.
That is what I don't remember seeing one in a really long time. So I don't. It's.
You can say that you haven't seen them in a long time. We had never seen a short-term rental until they came in, and we had one back here on Verona Drive that turned into an event center. And I can tell you, it's hell on wheels when it happens. And if you don't have something in place to deal with it,
and I think that
you have problems.
Yeah, I think the issue is when it comes and it comes quickly, and we can't react fast enough with changing our rules and regulations. And I think that's the point that he's
being
trying to get to, and not wanting to address middle market I mean, we need to address affordability. We need to address those types of things, and that's not the intent. But we want to know how, what, and where around it. What's it going to look like? Not physically, but what does it look like? So I understand where you're headed, Mr. Tooman.
Yeah, I just think the comprehensive plan's is an important document. I wanted to make sure that every one of us are 100% confident in like what's being pushed forward. So whether it's ADUs or another item, if any of us are uncomfortable with something, I would think that we need to either stop and take the time or amend it or talk about it or something. So if Member Coase is uncomfortable with this, then we either need to hold off on it or we either need to figure it out. So.
I think the approach of going ahead and addressing that tonight, moving on with the rest of it, gets the document there, and then we come back on that one issue and address it.
Okay, so
because we can always add it.
Right.
The comprehensive plan can be added to. We don't have to, it's not like we have to wait 5 or 6 years for another.
To do it again. Yeah, no. So moving forward here, if we shoot down the amendment that I threw out, then I come back and make the amendment for 6.9, and then we can move forward.
So?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, hold on real quick. Tony?
Can't we move forward with both? I mean, you want to strike 6.2 and change the language of 6.9.
Correct.
We're just going to vote on them separately.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, but I mean.
Okay, so we're going to shoot. Okay,
Yeah.
So the first one is shooting 6.2, and then 6.9.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah. Mr. Patel?
Mayor, thank you. Vince, you had said you had requested council to get people to serve on the committee for the Old Town site. When was that?
I would have to look, but I did it through email.
Okay. You might want to check your email for me because I don't remember getting anything.
We'll look it up.
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Truman said he didn't get anything either. So just double check.
I believe it went to Council 1, so we need to check Council 1 then. Didn't come to us individually. Went to a specific deal. So, any other questions on the current amendment? Seeing no other questions on the current amendment, Madam Secretary, I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment as presented.
So the amendment that is presented is to strike 6.2 from the comprehensive plan,
which is ADUs.
Right. Yeah. And then change.
Scroll down.
Page 20.
So we're striking 6.2, provide ADU guidance, study different types of ADUs, and provide clear paths forward for permitting within certain zoning districts. Effectively, it would strike that out. That's the amendment that we're voting on. Madam Secretary, calling for the vote.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavarria?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, Mr. Kozer, do you want to present your second one?
Yes, Mayor. So second one would be amendment to 6.9 focus group. Create a city council appointed focus group to develop recommendations for middle market housing regulations. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional questions on the amendment?
I do have a question. So each council is going to get to appoint somebody, or is it the mayor and the pro?
No, it'd be I would suggest each council member and the mayor, we bring forward recommendations for it.
Yeah.
I just want to be clarified that the motion is for each council member to be able to appoint somebody. Okay.
So if you want me to say 6.9 focus group, create a city council appointed focus group with each council member appointing one appointee to develop recommendations for middle market housing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that, we had a motion and a second on that. Any other questions?
Can we make sure legal's good with all that?
No, that's fine. I mean, that's the council amendment. I just didn't, I thought the initial direction was just to bring it back and the council would appoint based on names that would be discussed. But it sounds like each person's going to have an appointment, so.
That'll work. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we're going to call a vote on the Second Amendment.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavadilla,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, so we're back to the table. We now have an amended motion, twice amended motion on the table. Any other questions on the item? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote on the amended motion now.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavadilla,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
You guys are just going to challenge me on Robert's Rules of Order tonight. All right. So with that, Mr. Koza, if you would present item H.
Certainly, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R2024-168. So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Quick staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This item adds a little under $79,000 to our audit services contract with Whitley Penn due to the necessary work in the FY23 audit process. Some of the additional work was recreating the FY22 audit backup documents that were not available from our former auditor, and then the late start due to switching auditors this past year. That precluded our ability to do an interim audit, which resulted in increased demands to complete the audit in a timely manner. And so with that, we recommend approval. Thank you.
All right. Who pulled?
I pulled that. Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, I just wanted to see if Trent can give us an explanation. However, I would like to ask about the new contract for this coming audit. So will there be a reduction? I mean, the new audit won't be $223,793.
So we haven't brought that back to you yet, and then we're also adding to the scope moving forward, doing the basically quarterly work with us throughout the year. So while I hope it's less than this, we're also adding some of that work to ensure that our audit process goes smoothly year to year.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavadilla,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right. With that, we'll move to public hearing number 1. So with that, Martin, are you presenting this? Okay. Move right into the reason and move into your report.
Thank you, Mayor. First public hearing tonight is a request by the Director of Community Development of the City of Pearland for approval of a permanent zone classification of single-family residential 3 district for a newly annexed tract of land totaling approximately 0.3812 acres. This is southwest of the intersection of Glenview Drive and De Leon here in Pearland. So as you may recall, we recently annexed a little bit of property. This zone case is for the zoning assignment of that newly annexed property. It has R3 across the street, so we're seeing fit to assign R3, residential 3 zoning for that property. The applicant's intent is to develop a single-family home on that residence, and there were 7 public comments that were in opposition. Those were mainly comments about opposition of multifamily. We reached out to each of those individuals and had further conversations with them, reassuring them that multifamily would not be developed on here without additional public notice. So future land use has this as medium density residential. Surrounding land uses are all single family residences within the city, and then large lot residences that are outside of city limits. Here you can see a view from Glenview Drive looking towards the property. And then this meets the established criteria for approval of a zone change, and staff recommended for this R3 zoning district. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0, recommending approval of this zoning. With that, Mayor, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, thank you for that. Since we are the applicant, I'll move forward to those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request can go to the podium, give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Second request for those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Third and final time, those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. All right, seeing no one move in that direction, we'll move it to City Council for questions, comments, concerns. Mr. Koza?
I'd just like to make a comment for the general public. This is a piece of land that we annexed at the owner's request, and today we're just zoning it so that the gentleman can go on and build his home. So everybody understands we didn't go out and grab a piece of land or anything like that. The gentleman does want to be part of our city, and this is the process where we zone his property after annexation. So.
Right. Thank you. You beat me to it. And I was going to say the exact same thing. It's just a process, and hopefully after the next council meeting, we'll have it all put to bed. Last call, questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll move out of the public hearing into new business item number 1. Ms. Chavarria, would you present that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance number 2000M-262. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report. We've had a chance for questions, comments from council. Madam Secretary, I want to call for the vote.
Member Chavarria?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
With that, we'll do public hearing number 2. I believe, Mr. Coker, are you presenting it?
Yes, I am, Mayor. Thank you. Josh, can you go ahead and, yeah, that map right there would be perfect. I apologize to the public. This map is a little bit light and almost looks a little bit faded, but I'll try to do my best to describe the area here that we're going to discuss. This is a public hearing for the abandonment of a portion of public right-of-way. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That one went off.
Oh, okay. We'll wait for that. There we go. So, all right, this again, a public hearing for the abandonment of a portion of public right-of-way, and it's the right-of-way that you see there in that the red box. And just to give you a description of this area, as you can see on the right-hand side of that is Yost Road, and then the area in question is a public right-of-way that is now unused because it was abandoned. The roadway was realigned when the Yost Road project was done. We realigned Yost Road to line up with Shady Crest, and there we go. Let's go ahead. Yep. Yeah, that's the property there that's the subject of this public hearing. Can we go back to the other? Yeah, right there. So the process we go through is we have to send certain notices out. The property owner at 2101 Roland Rue, which is just to the north of the property there, that's a Miss Fertitta. I don't know if she happens to be here this evening or not, but I had a conversation with her, and when we get to the public hearing, I'll share the context of our conversation if she's not here. But the purpose of this, again, is the individual here, the property owner that you see on the corner, the northwest corner, would like the city to abandon this unused 11,000 square feet of right-of-way. As you can see there, they're looking to put that property to a use for the construction of a small retail center, 7,500 square feet approximately. I believe it would actually be a retail grocer of some sort. And in order to maximize the use of that property and meet the parking requirements, they would like this right-of-way abandoned. And that's the purpose of this public hearing, is to receive public testimony or comment regarding that. It's in the background information, but the city does not necessarily object to the abandonment of the right-of-way if the council desires to do that this evening, which would be considered by a separate item. But there are a few requisites the staff would like council to consider if that's the case. One, we do have a sewer line that runs down the original alignment of Yost Road, and so we would reserve a sanitary sewer easement in that right-of-way. We would also require expansion joints to be put in the concrete to minimize where the easement is, to minimize impact in the event that they have to access that, and then for repairs, and then that the city would be compensated for the right-of-way. And I know the property owner, that's been discussed with the property owner, and that has not been a problem.
For the public's sake, can Josh point that out? It's the dotted line that's, I believe.
No, if you'll actually
No,
go
it's
to
right.
go to the next, not that one there, but the very next one. That represents the 20-foot sanitary sewer
Okay, so
easement
it's
that
not
the
on
city would be retaining.
Thank you.
And so that's the background information on this. I know that we need to get to the public hearing portion, and then before we get to the discussion, and I don't know if the property owner or the developer is here this evening, but they may want to make some comments when we get to prior to the public hearing.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll turn to the public. Those wishing to offer testimony on this abandonment of a right-of-way can go to the podium, give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes to speak. We have one. Thank you for coming out tonight. Welcome. Just give us your name and address for the record, and you see the clock up on the screen. Thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Sal Thent. I'm the engineer of record for the project. Wanted to explain to you what we're proposing on the existing property to the west of the right-of-way that we're requesting to be abandoned. We're proposing approximately 7,500 square foot Mediterranean specialty grocery use. In order to meet the parking requirement and to get a sufficient square footage for the building, we need additional land area to put the surface parking spaces. We worked with the city engineering staff in terms of the existing sanitary sewer that lies below it. It lies approximately 15 feet deep underground that services the adjacent residential and commercial sanitary sewer lines that runs parallel to FM 518, which runs north downstream along Yost. Therefore, for future maintenance requirements, we're agreeing to the dedication of the 20-foot sanitary sewer. Thank you.
Sounds good. If we have questions later, when we get into questions and comments from council, we may have you come back up since you're the engineer of record.
Yes, sir.
Fine. All right. Second request, those wishing to offer testimony on this open public hearing. Third and final time, those wishing to address council and offer comments on this public hearing for an abandonment of right-of-way. Seeing no one moving in that direction, we'll turn to council for questions, comments, concerns. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Koza?
I've got a question as far as entrance and exit from the property. There's only see one. Is that acceptable when it goes to be built?
May I respond?
Yes, yes.
Yes, when we did the preliminary site layout plan, our desire was to get an entrance off Yost Street. But due to the proximity of the existing fire station, which is to the east, on the right side of the property, the staff does not desire for us to have an entrance off Yost. So our entrance only will be along FM 518 Broadway.
So Martin or Vance, is one entrance in and out all right?
Yeah, so number of entrances is determined by use and size of the development. Do you know the square footage of the development, sir?
7,500 square feet approximately.
Yeah, they're going to be fine.
All right, fair enough.
Other opportunities, questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll close this public hearing and move to new business item number 2. Mayor Pro Tem, would you present that, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, first reading of ordinance 1644. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report and questions and comments from council. We'll turn to vote. Madam Secretary.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I wanted to make note of the individual property owner that I did speak to share her comments. If you don't mind, just to get those in the record. Yes, Ms. Fertitta called and asked questions, and she felt like I had answered her questions. She just wanted to just clarify a few things. Her primary concern was that the city was not taking any property, and I said, no, in this particular case, not impacting her property, that we weren't taking any property, that we would be just abandoning the strip there just south of her property. She understood that, and then she said that her only concern would be, obviously that the use of that property could create noise from vehicles. And I did explain that previously the original right-of-way ran really very close and adjacent to her property, so the actual movement of cars has been moved further from her property, and that, yes, there would be some parking on the property. Based on the sketch that you just saw, I thought it would be approximately 8-9 parking spaces. Anyway, so we discussed that, and after that, she was comfortable, at least with my explanation, but I did want to get her comments and concerns into the
And in addition to that, I think the property owner coming in with commercial business development will be required to have some noise abatement, fencing, those types of things against their fence. So that'll be part of the UDC requirements as they come in to build.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
Member Carbone? Byram? Sorry.
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, with that, we'll move to public hearing number 3. Not sure who's presenting that. Martin?
Yes, Mayor. So public hearing number 3, this is a request by Tom Daniel, applicant and owner, for approval of a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit use within the single-family residential 1 district. This is on approximately 0.7922 acres of land. General location of the property is 2104 West Marys Creek Lane here in Pearland. So summary of the request, again, this is for an accessory dwelling unit on a single-family residential piece of property. They are planning on constructing the expansion on the rear of the existing garage. The total area for the accessory dwelling unit is 990 square feet. That is taking 360 square feet out of the existing garage and then expanding by 630 feet to come to that total 990. This is for the owner's family members to reside within. And there were 3 public comments that were in support of this request. Taking a look at the future land use, it is low-density residential, and it's surrounded by single-family residences and then some undeveloped property. This is a view from West Marys Creek Lane towards that garage that will be expanded. And then here is the site plan showing where the existing garage is, and then where a portion of that garage would then be transformed into a living area and expanded out for the accessory dwelling unit. Here's a proposed elevation and side view of the ADU. And then staff reviewed this with our conditional use permit criteria. We recommended approval for it, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended 4-0 with the following condition, that the use shall only allow for the accessory dwelling unit to be occupied by a person who is related to the person who occupies the primary dwelling unit on the subject property. Of course, this is presented with a blank resolution, so if this condition is desirable by council, would either take amending the motion or adding it to the initial proposal. So with that, Mayor, I'll pass it back to you.
All right. Is the applicant present? All right. Do you have a presentation, or are you just here to answer questions? Okay. We'll certainly call on you if we have any questions, but welcome tonight, and we'll keep moving on with this public hearing, but we may call on you if we have some questions under questions and comments from council. With that, we will turn it over to the public. Those wishing to offer testimony for or against this proposed request can go to the podium, give us your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you for coming down tonight.
My name is Eric Four. I live at 2102 West Marys Creek, immediately to the left of the Daniels family, and we are 100% in support of this.
Okay. Thank you for that. Second attempt, those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request?
My name's Robert Dietrich. I live at 2101 West Marys Creek, which is right straight across from the house in question, and I have no problems with it.
All right.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Diedrich. Again, those wishing to offer testimony for or against this proposed request? Third and final time, those wishing to offer testimony for or against this proposed request can go to the podium, give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing no one moving in that direction, we will move to questions, comments, concerns from City Council. Byram? Ms. Kay?
I just wanted to know on this, on the condition, does that follow if the Daniels sell the house? Does the conditions come with the, on the C?
So conditional use permits are good with the establishment of the building permit. They continue throughout the life of the structure as long as an abandonment does not take place. So that would be where the use or the user no longer utilizes the accessory dwelling unit for 6 months, after which point the use would have to come back before you for approval for it to go back into being an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, it follows. Okay. And that was a question I had with Mr. Daniel. Are you okay with the condition?
I hear what you say, but in actuality, they're going to build the house. Some point they may sell it, and we don't have. Despite what some people think, we don't have monitors going around seeing who's living where. So abandonment, that makes sense if we're talking about a auto body shop or something. But in talking about ADUs, what does that look like in real life from an abandonment standpoint? And if, let's say it does sit abandoned and we can prove it for 6 months, it's revoked, okay, are we going to go in and make them tear out kitchens to, I guess, I mean, I heard the words you're saying, but what does this look like in real life?
What it looks like in real life is someone would have to, one, be knowledgeable of the conditions, which it would go out and live on our interactive map and be easily findable by any resident. Two, it would have to be noticed. We are staffed for being responsive to citizens and to building requests. We're not necessarily staffed for, as you say, having eyes everywhere. Three, it would essentially come to procedures of notice of violation if it was found that the person was having that accessory dwelling unit without meeting the condition, or having that accessory dwelling unit after it has been abandoned. We would, of course, offer them to come back before council at whatever time that is. Me speaking on behalf of future staff, but hopefully they would just go back through the approval process and have a similar condition reapproved. Otherwise, it would be up to the violation procedures to either cure the violation by removal of some portion of that structure to then have it be just an accessory structure to the residence, or some other cure.
So I guess in practicality, you've got neighbors here supporting it. If something happens, the house sells, and somebody moves in and starts operating STR, the neighbors don't like it, then when they come back to the city and say, hey, we don't like this change, we now have some teeth to help limit those uses versus what we would have if we didn't have this condition?
Teeth is a good word there, but yes, that would allow us to have better enforcement.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Kozel? So Darren, Lawrence, in this right here, it says the CUP shall only allow for accessory dwelling unit to be occupied by a person who is related to the person who occupies the primary dwelling unit from the subject property. We had this discussion before. When the person that's living there, if it starts out, I know Mr. Daniels personally, our kids played soccer together when they were in high school, so it has nothing to do against Mr. Daniel himself. I'm looking at when they no longer own the property or move on, we have a different situation with different people. And are we going to just take people's word for this is my brother, sister, mother, father? If not, how do we enforce family-related member?
Investigation of such an issue, as we discussed during this accessory dwelling unit conversation for the comprehensive plan in the past, is always going to be difficult for something of that sort. As it stands, that condition was some measure of limitation to prevent it just becoming an accessory dwelling unit that anybody could live in, becoming a garage apartment for rent, which would absolutely erode the single-family zoning category as you've described it during the accessory dwelling unit conversation. So we wanted to find something that at least puts it related to the family member. How we measure that could be difficult. You could make an amendment. You can put in by consanguinity or affinity relationships with the first or second degree, or you can put an annual verification every year on the permit if you wanted to do that. And it's just taking their word for it if they come in and say it, and then we would have to have reason to believe that that's not happening before we could enforce it or investigate further.
Okay, where we got into the short-term rental aspect of it, it got to the point where the gentleman that owned that property, everybody was a family member. I don't know if Chief Spires remembers, but the police department would go out there, they would ask, and the immediate response was, I'm family. My question is, how do we enforce it? Are we going to start asking for DNA tests?
No, sir, because a DNA test isn't going to tell you if the person's a family member related by affinity versus consanguinity. So that wouldn't be a good measure either. Enforcement is going to be difficult. The question is there a circumstance where you would want this?
I would say further than difficult, it would probably be non-existent.
There are some ways, if you can get the appropriate search warrant or if you see a listing for rent, it's going to be a sign.
Darren.
You normally wouldn't put a listing for rent outside if you're renting it to a family member. If you see listings online or something of that sort, or if the person there, another example where I think the city has seen enforcement of something similar is when somebody came in because they were going to rent a place out and they didn't want to do all bills paid to the non-related people. So they came in for an additional meter, and that was the sign. And the result of that was
when you get into that, but when you get into these deals, everybody's my brother-in-law and everybody's my sister.
It is a difficult investigation and difficult enforcement scenario.
Because I'll ask Darren, you and I had many conversations prior to me being on council about that short-term rental, and what did they hinge on in the latter days?
Well, in the latter days, we filed a Chapter 54 action, and we went after them for violations of and zoning violations because it was actually being run as an event center. in violation of our zoning ordinance. And actually, we would still have the same avenue in a situation like this, as long as the council imposes some type of regulation as recommended here, because at a minimum, it does add additional teeth. And that way, when we do, if we're forced to pursue a Chapter 54 action, civil action, then at least we're able to go forward and prove, and I guess through testimony and evidence, to be able to prove to the court that they're violating the ordinance, and they wouldn't be able to continue to do so.
In a case like this, I know how long it took to do the short-term rental. What type of time frame do you look at?
It can vary, but on a case like this, I would say easily probably a 3 to 4 month period for this type of case. From the time that because you exhaust all your other remedies first, which are notice of violations, cease and desist type things, and then if that doesn't work, you go through municipal court, and then if that doesn't work, then you moved on to Chapter 54 cases. So, and that was 3 to 4 months from the time that we've reached the point that we filed that action.
Correct. Actually, through the courts, and
yes,
which that's very expedient.
Good deal, Mr. Baum.
I mean, I share your concerns. That was my question. What does the enforcement look like? I recognize the fact that we have parts of our community that are starting to age. We have neighborhoods where we have residents that they may have children living in the residence, and they want to build these type situations. I think the lesson here for all of us and for the neighbors, I appreciate y'all coming out and supporting this. I think what you're hearing here tonight is ultimately this comes down to y'all. If we approve this, the city's not going to have somebody driving by checking to see who's the person living there and are they allowed to be there. So that's something to think about as we move into this chapter. This particular community as well has a lot of people that love living in this area. They don't want to move out. They're getting older. I can see the desire. They have the larger lots to be able to do this in. So I'm not opposed to it, but I do share the concerns of my fellow council members as far as how do you enforce it. And so it's really not going to be City of Pearland. From what I'm hearing from you guys, it's not going to be the City of Pearland going by and making sure that if this piece of property sells, someone else is living there, are they really letting their grandmother live there or their son-in-law live there, or is it just somebody that's paying them rent on the side? They don't know about it. So that's something, the input that I have for y'all is accepting this responsibility within your community to basically say, this is on y'all to regulate. And you're not always going to be there either. Eventually other people are going to live in the homes in the neighborhoods. That's just something to consider. Lawrence, I like the idea of adding affinity to this, to where you do have something that you can go in and say, you can't just say it's my cousin, right? You have to actually demonstrate that there's some level of degree of connection to them other than just you said so. So that gives you guys as neighbors a little bit more legs to stand on as well. If Mr. Daniels, I don't know you, I have no reason to think you wouldn't use this the way you're saying going to, but you ever sold it or your kids ever sold it after you were gone, it really ends up landing on the neighbors to enforce this. So it gives you guys a little bit more strength as well, I would think, if we would add that. So I would motion to leave this language the way that it is and add in not just occupied by a person who is related, but is related by affinity.
You're going to be the one putting it on the table in a second. Mr. Tooman? Okay.
Yeah, so just another thought on this is whether it's a duplex, an apartment complex, a single family home, a business, we have impact fees. And if we're adding a dwelling to a residence, in this case, there's no impact fee associated with it. Is that correct?
No, the current impact fee ordinance is by meter size. So as long as they did not change out the water meter size, there would be no impact fee. Or add a second meter.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Chavaria? Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I do also agree with Councilmember Koza. I just feel like there's no way to really enforce it. And how do you know that that's your family member? How do you prove that? So I do have concern, but I do understand. I was thinking about building an addition to our property because I have aging parents at one point. So I do understand that and respect that, but I do feel that there is still enforcement. And I don't think that adding affinity is going to make a difference. It's my opinion.
Yeah, and I just wanted to chime in for those that are in the room and anybody that's watching online, the reason for the in-depth discussion about this. We have roughly 38,000, 39,000 single-family dwellings, or call it 38,000 single-family dwellings in the city of Pearland. Imagine, if you will, every single one of those had an ADU. That's the point that Mr. Koza was trying to make earlier. You've just now turned your entire city, an entire neighborhood into a multifamily dwelling. And again, most of these on the front end, just like the Daniels are trying to do, is altruistic. It's the right thing to do, and we've got it. What happens a generation later? What happens down the road? And that's the reason we're having these types of discussions. It's one thing to have an apartment structure outside of a neighborhood all in of itself. It's different to have it home by home by home. And that's the reason why this whole ADU, accessory dwelling unit, is such a hot topic and such a big topic. At the same time, it's a way to, we have parents aging in place. We have children who may have a disability still living at home. You have all of those situations which are 100% real. But we as a city are trying to also look at what if and what happens in the next generation. So thank you for indulging us as we've had this conversation. It's a big conversation, and as you can tell, lots more of the conversation to come because the legislature is probably going to weigh in on some of this as well. And the next session, so we'll be back up having more conversation around it. Last call for questions. Mr. Koza?
Yeah, I forgot to say when I was talking earlier, granted this is short-term rental, it's not the same as what we're looking at here, but the city of Houston, I read an article this past week, last year had 60,000 phone calls that were related to short-term rentals, and that was strictly short-term rentals. It wasn't anything else, and this is the propensity.
The majority of those were just a handful.
Well, exactly, but at the end of the day, that's how big it can become when you have a problem within that subset, just like the one on Verona Drive. So it's a deal where it is or can be a massive problem within your city. So.
All right.
Mayor, I would, if the council desires to include the affinity language, I would actually recommend using consanguinity and affinity. One is by marriage, and then the other one is those related to you outside of marriage. And that is in varying degrees. Under state law, typically there's to the first degree, to the second degree, and so forth. But to give you an example, obviously, first degree is spouse, or it would be your parent or your child. Then a second degree would extend to a brother or sister or grandparents and things of that nature. So, or a grandparent-in-law or a brother and sister-in-law, and that would be second. So I would just recommend that it be both consanguinity and affinity if that is a limitation council wants to impose.
So, Mr. Daniel, I have a question for you. First degree, second degree, third degree. What is your thoughts on that? No, probably need to go to the podium and go ahead and, that way. Sorry about that. I was just trying to be expedient. Thank you for that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to any of the added language. It makes sense, and like I said, first off, our oldest son's going to be there, him and his fiance, and then the transition will be ultimately that my wife and I will be using that smaller area. Because we have the lot that the house is on, the primary and the existing garage, in hopes to be built out. And then we also have 5/8 of an acre next door that's ours as well. So all of that will stay within the family. We have 2 other children, younger children that will eventually, maybe one of them will take it over, the other one, but the ultimate goal is multi-generational and keep passing it down. You know, my folks bought the house in '76, and here we are being the third generation. So, and if there's, I don't know with Mr. Coker, Mr. Proven, if there's any kind of other language that, I'm fine with this language. It works perfect for me. If it covers the concern.
That helps because I mean, you're generating this request, and so we want to make sure that this is a great test case for even some of this language with a condition like this put on it. So that's the reason why we wanted to get your input on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, if there's any additional whatever's.
And it makes 100% sense.
Yes.
What we're trying to do. Multi-generational homes is the right thing to do. We just, like I said, we're trying to guard the back end of this.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
Darren, so in the first degree, like you've got it written here right now, in Mr. Daniels' particular case, in the first degree, that would mean that his parents or his children could live in this ADU, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Or his spouse. And then also, now on affinity, the second degree of affinity would be a parent-in-law or a daughter or son-in-law. And then second degree on the consanguinity would be a grandparent, brother, sister, or a grandchild.
Nieces or nephews.
And
this would be of the occupant, the way we're writing
third
this,
degree, yes.
This would be of the occupant of the main structure.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Right. So we may want to go to second degree.
All right, I'm going to close this public hearing and move to new business item number 3. Mr. Byram, would you present that? And in your, go ahead and put your amendment in your motion.
He's going to have to put that language back up. Consideration possible action resolution number R2024-CUP24-19 as amended to add in the language related to the person by the first degree of consanguinity and affinity to the person who occupies the primary dwelling. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions, comments? Mr. Patel?
Sorry, you said the word and I know that and was in the screen. I think we want to use the word or. Consanguinity or affinity.
Yeah.
We don't want
Fair
both.
enough. It can't be both. Yeah. Or.
Coordinating conjunctions have a big difference in legal context.
Yeah.
Or
And
does the second agree with or?
does the second agree with or?
Second.
Instead of going back and amending. Any other questions, comments? I mean, I wouldn't mind a second degree, but first degree at least gets us there. Any other? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tooman?
And we're voting on the. Aye.
Member Patel?
All together.
It's everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all.
No.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-2.
I'll give you my vote. No.
Member Chavarria?
No.
43.
She voted.
No, okay.
All right, thank you for indulging us on that.
43.
We got it across the finish line. So with that, we'll move to public hearing number 4.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is a request by Keene Realty Management, LLC, applicant on behalf of BC Halleck Business Park, LLC, owner for approval of a conditional use permit for a studio or learning center for fine or performing arts use within the light industrial M1 district on approximately 7.6525 acres of land. The general location of the property is 4407 Halleck Street, Suite E300 and E500. Again, summary of the request. This is to allow for a dance or fitness studio to move into a 5,900 square foot lease space. They provide a variety of dance and fitness activities listed here on the screen. All classes are conducted within the building, and there were 42 comments that were provided from the public in support of this request. The future land use has this within the industrial classification. Surrounding uses are warehouses, the cemetery, that's the Old Settler Cemetery, and the undeveloped property to the north. Here you can get a look from directly along Halleck at the lease space. And this is kind of a bird's eye view of E300 and E500. They're on the left-hand side of the property. So while this use is not consistent with the future land use designation, there may be some additional concerns from future tenants as a future industrial tenant in an M1 property may not necessarily expect to be around a dance studio. However, this property is an existing office warehouse park, which is suitable for the proposed dance and fitness studio, and the use is not adjacent to any heavy industrial M2 zoned properties. With all of that said, staff recommended approval of the request, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission took a 4-0 vote to recommend approval. There were no conditions added from the Planning and Zoning Commission. With that, Mayor, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, is the applicant present? You have a presentation? All right, welcome.
Do I just start?
Give us your name and address for the record, and you have as much time as you need.
Okay. My name is Cassie Bolin, and my address is 2425 Londonderry Drive. I am the owner of Project 3 Dance Productions, and today I'd like to share a little bit about my business and the impact that it has on the Pearland community. I'm a third-generation dance instructor, director, and studio owner. I began dancing at 2 years old at my grandmother's studio when she opened in 1977 on Hall Road. In 1995, she relocated to Friendswood off 2351, and it was there in her second studio that I began teaching dance myself. I choreographed my first competition routine when I was only 13 years old, and I've been teaching ever since. In 2006, my mother continued our family's legacy by opening Dance Productions right here on Pearland on Garden Road. Dance Productions was conveniently located next door to Reflex Gymnastics, which was owned by my aunts, Kimbra Johnson and Tammy Hasso. Many of our students took both gymnastics from Reflex and dance from us, creating a close-knit, supportive environment. In 2011, as our studio grew, we moved to a new location on Broadway Street where I served as the dance company director. In 2021, my mother retired and I had the honor of taking over the business, rebranding it as Project 3 Dance Productions. As a third-generation owner, I have had the privilege of teaching thousands of Pearland students over the years. Many of my students have gone on to achieve great success. Working within the Pearland community and helping students develop their skills while providing a creative outlet has truly been a blessing. Due to the growth we've recently experienced, we are now in need of a larger space. The building at 4407 Halleck Street is the perfect location to accommodate this growth and provide our dancers with the space they need to properly train. This location is also ideal because it is directly next door to Pearland Elite Gymnastics, one of the largest gymnastics academies in Pearland. Many of our students split their time between dance and gymnastics at Pearland Elite, and being in such close proximity will greatly benefit our dance families. It will also be beneficial for both of our businesses to have a dance studio and gymnastics academy located side by side. Additionally, our studio hours are after school, which means that most of our businesses surrounding this new location will be closed while we are opening. The only business that operates during our hours is the Gymnastics Academy next door. So today I am asking for your approval of the conditional use permit for Project 3 Dance Productions. There are many young dancers that are counting on me, and I am doing everything to make this possible for them. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for that. And if we have any questions in a minute, we may have you come back up. But you well said, well presented. Thank you for that. So with that, we're going to move to those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. But we did have two or three people signed up to speak. So we're going to call on you now. That way we can queue you up, and then we'll come to the rest of the public in a minute.
All right. First up, Wendy Maruva.
Same drill. Name and address for the record. 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Marua, and I live on 2609 Shady Bend, and I am here in complete support of the dance studio. My daughter is also 13 now, and she is starting to choreograph her own dances as well. So you're seeing the generational effects here. I believe that the studio fosters teamwork. Lots of brain activity goes on in there because they problem solve, they have critical thinking skills, spatial awareness, memory. So it's a really great place for girls to grow up and have good self-efficacy, self-esteem. So I think please vote yes for this studio. They need more space. They're kind of crowded right now across the street, and they need more space. So please vote yes.
All right, next up.
Thank you for those comments. Next up, Heather Deem. Go to the podium, give us your name and address for the purpose of the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Heather Dean Pacina. I'd like to start out by wishing an early happy birthday to Mayor Cole. That'd be tomorrow. My address is 2446 Country Club Drive. I would like to share with you why I believe that we really need to approve this conditional use permit. Almost 44 years and counting is a long time to be affiliated with a business, a team, or an organization. As a little girl, Cassie's grandmother and mother were my dance instructors. I became an employee to both of them at their studios as an instructor myself. I also taught Cassie, who is now applying for this permit, and now she is teaching my daughter. A true lifetime of being as close to family without sharing DNA. As a third-generation studio owner, Cassie's roots in the community run deep. She was raised and educated here in Pearland. She is a longtime resident as an adult and has chosen to establish and grow her family and run her small business here in Pearland. She is well respected and has many, many others who are third-generation dance families. In our current post-COVID society, it is so imperative that these children have a safe, happy place to continue to follow their dance dreams. Dance education is just as vital to our recreational community as every T-ball team, Girl Scout troop, and football team, as well as gymnasium and hopefully future neighbor. So please, please support the continuation of something so precious that was started almost 50 years ago. Please let us continue the legacy of our coveted Happy Dance family. After all, the show must go on, and Project 3 Dance Productions puts the unity in community. We ask for your vote, please.
Thank you for the comments.
Thank you for those comments. Next up, Miss Angie Mitchell. Same spiel. If you give us your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
My name is Angie Mitchell. I'm at 6222 Laurie Street. First, I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to speak today. I myself also personally took lessons from Cassie's grandmother, and as well as my daughter is currently taking from Miss Cassie as well. And my daughter is 13 years old, and she's also a member of Pearland Elite Gymnastics. So she's been with both for about 9 years now. And, Cassie had referenced about when they were next to Reflex Gymnastics and the cohesive relationship. I can tell you right now, first and foremost, there will be that same exact relationship between Pearland Elite as well as Project 3. So I'm asking and begging for you today to please, please support this. The girls have been so excited and ready to get into the new place, and we would really, really appreciate your support and support our dance family. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And last one I have signed up is Miss Hillary Douglas. Thank you for being here. You'll go to the podium, give us your name and address for the purpose of the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay, hi, I'm Hillary Douglas. I live at 2312 Fairway Circle, the best street in Pearland. Good evening. I'm a local small business owner and dedicated community member. I serve on various boards and committees within PISD. I have a passion for my hometown and education. Education, however, is not limited to just our school district. Education in the arts, specifically dance in this case, is so important to today's youth. I watch many young individuals battle so much through societal pressures, social media, and even video games. Behaviors within our education system are at an all-time high. It's important now more than ever that children are involved in extracurricular activities. With that being said, being here today to advocate for Project 3 is a no-brainer. Cassie's dedication to educating young men and women started long ago. The journey to Project 3 began in 1977. As a Pearland resident, we drove to the closest dance studio located off Hall Road in Sagemont to dance. Many Pearland families attended Bonnie Cisco for instruction and followed the studio to Friendswood in the 90s. In 2006, when Tammy continued her family's legacy opening dance productions here in Pearland, many of us followed. They outgrew their original location, which brought them to where they are today, with Tammy's retirement and Cassie becoming a third-generation studio owner. Due to continued growth and demand, Project 3 is needing expansion again. Countless lives have been enriched through the Cisco, Richardson, and Boland women from many surrounding cities. Dancers from Bonnie Cisco Dance Productions and now Project 3 have seen incredible amounts of success. I would say their greatest accomplishments aren't in the many accolades of their studios. It's in the environment that they create for the impressionable young women and men to find themselves through the expression of dance. Dance teaches much more than movement. Students learn to carry themselves, how to present themselves, discipline, and so much more. Our studio is more than dance. It is a family. It is a realized dream that holds a positive impact on what can be a negative and cruel world. To not approve this would not only be damaging to young men and women in our community, but the dreams of a young, excited, encouraging, and loving community supporter. I implore you to think of your children, your grandchildren, and imagine what life would look like for them if their passion was hindered due to something so little as a permit. Pearland families will feel the effects of this if it shall not pass, as well as a fellow small business owner. The space is rented, the dancers are ready. So many factors are resting in the decision you men and women make today. I pray the right decision defending a 47-year legacy is made, because Pearland is the place to be, and Pearland needs Project 3. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. Registered.
That's it. That's all that registered. So we'll just, we're continuing on. We'll make second call for those wishing to offer testimony for or against this proposed request.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hinojosa. My address is 3846 Skylark Way. I have been affected by Project 3 in the most amazing ways. I think this might be a testament, just my determination to speak tonight with this baby. My daughters are living proof, and so am I, of how amazing this studio really is. A dance studio like this positively impacts the community in several ways. It offers cultural enrichment and provides a space for artistic expression, appreciation, and enhancing everyone's culture. Physical fitness, by promoting health and wellness and offering a fun way for all of our children to stay active. Social connection, opportunity for social interaction, and helping people build friendships and connections. Like mine and Cassie's and Hillary's, we've been friends since I was 4 years old. So 32 years strong. Youth development, children, teens, dance studios foster discipline, confidence, teamwork, and contribute to personal growth and development. Economic impact, the studio can boost the economy by attracting visitors and generating employment and supporting local business. And finally, community events. They offer and host performances and events that bring people together, celebrating local talent and fostering a sense of community. I believe this studio helps my life and many people's lives, hundreds of people's lives every day, and thousands in the time it has existed, and I hope it continues to grow, and I hope you can help us grow. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Good evening, everyone. Whoa, it's really close. Good evening, everyone. Man, if y'all ever want to sell out a city council meeting, just put something about dance moms on the agenda. We're rocking and rolling here. I am actually here.
Name and address, please. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I got to do that. Heather Peterson, and I live at 3607 Pinehurst Drive, the best street in Pearland. Best neighborhood. I'm going to talk a little bit, but I'm actually going to read a statement on behalf of my wonderful, very involved mother-in-law, Sherry Peterson, who could not make it tonight. She's not feeling well. She actually came down ill last night, so some prayers would be great. Thank you to the Pearland City Council for the opportunity to speak tonight. I stand in support of Cassie Bolin and Project 3 Dance Productions. Cassie is trying to improve her small business to better accommodate the many students who attend Project 3, an award-winning, this is in all caps because it is, an award-winning dance studio. I also have a personal interest in her achieving this goal of opening a larger, more updated studio for a very big reason, my granddaughter, Charlie. You all have seen her, I am sure, and she put names in parentheses, so. She has benefited in many ways from her instruction and coaching at Project 3. The teachers and coaches work with students not only on their dancing skills, but on their social skills, confidence, and responsibilities of life in general. It is truly amazing. I know that Cassie has been surprised by the many requirements to open a business location in Pearland, but I believe and know she has worked hard to meet those requirements. It is a surprise that at the 11th hour, she may receive a challenge to opening her business, which would be truly unfair. Why would anyone want to destroy another citizen's dreams of developing a better business? I hope you will stand with Cassie as well, encourage her to move on and to be a part of what makes Pearland a strong community supporting each other. So I will just say, my two older daughters attended dance productions when Cassie was there, or when Cassie was taking classes there with her mother, Miss Tammy. We moved to California, came back. Charlie is by far the dancer of the three daughters, by far. If it weren't for Project 3, Cassie and her team, my life would be miserable because it really is an outlet for her to get all that energy out. So please vote yes.
All right, third and final time, those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Seeing no one else moving that direction, we will turn it over to City Council for questions, comments, concerns. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming out. I support this. The only question I have is maybe for Chief Taylor, someone in your department. Right across the tracks is Third Coast Terminals. I know we've seen some expansion, or at the dais, we've seen some zoning issues before in terms of product handling and what they're storing there. And my girls go to elite gymnastics, and so every time I drive over there and I look across the tracks, I think, what if? And so I guess, Are you comfortable with the proximity of this CUP to Third Coast Terminals?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I am. I'm comfortable with the process. Our fire marshal's office has looked at every avenue of this proposal. We feel like it is safe. We think in the last few years with Third Coast and the procedures they've put in place, the way they coordinate with our fire marshal's office, where we have regular conversations and communication, site inspections, they've really stepped the game up over the last few years, and we do feel like it's a safe process and that we have no issues with this proposal.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Brown?
I don't really have a question. I just have basically two comments. First of all, thank you for being a multi-generational business in our community. I guess I do have one question for you, and you probably don't need to get up. Based on what I'm hearing tonight, is this big enough for you? You gonna be all right when there? Okay.
You beat me to it. That was a question.
Sounds like half of Pearland is already going to enroll there, so I'm just wondering. So, well, thank you very much for your family's investment in our community.
Any other questions, comments? I just want to echo, first off, thank you. Thank you for wanting to have your business in Pearland. We want you to have your business in Pearland. We want the multi-generational businesses like this to not only be here but thrive. You do more work for young ladies than most people can ever imagine. And I think you know what I mean by that. You give them confidence. You give them those social skills. You give them the opportunity to succeed. And it may not be in dance. It may be in something completely different. But what they've learned through your studio, they can apply in so much. I grew up in sports was my life, and I'm not a big guy. But sports gave me confidence to get up the next day. I tell people we went 0-10 my senior year, but the sun shined every single Saturday. And it gave me the confidence to continue on. It gave me that confidence to do that. So that's the type of work that you're bringing. I know Elite Gymnastics very well. In fact, I think they've taken over other buildings in that complex. This whole complex has turned into a sports-related complex anyway, and they do a tremendous job as well. I have a daughter-in-law who used to coach for them. She doesn't any longer, but so I know that property well. Last call for questions, comments. Seeing none, we'll close this public hearing. Move to new business item number 4. Ms. Cade, would you present that, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2024-CUP2420. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion in multiple seconds. We've had staff report, questions, comments from council. I'm going to call on Madam Secretary for the vote.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you. Welcome. All right. With that, we will move to public hearing number 5.
Have a good evening.
Yep. She wasn't kidding when you said invite the dance moms and they'll be here. All right, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. For public hearing number 5, this is a request by Mona Malone, applicant, on behalf of Fight Road REH LLC owner, for approval of a zone change for 9.6251 acres of land from single-family residential 1 district to single-family residential 3 district. This property is generally north of Fight Road, east of Manville Road, here in Pearland. So the applicant's intent is to rezone this property to develop a single-family subdivision. The subdivision would include 38 lots with approximately 2,500 square feet homes to be built on each one of those lots. You can see the property here outlined in red. The future land use has this as low-density residential, and surrounding uses are for single-family residents, baseball fields across the street at the Dad's Club, and then some undeveloped property on either side. This is at the dead end of Morenci Street. So here's a look out towards from Fight or across Fight Road. So staff's analysis, the R3 district is not consistent with the current land use designation, but R3 is compatible with the future land use designation in the newly adopted Pearland 2040 comp plan. Therefore, staff recommended approval of the proposed zone change from the R1 to R3. And then we took this to the P&Z earlier this month, and P&Z voted 4-0 to recommend approval of the R1 to R3 zone change. With that, Mayor, I will pass back to you.
All right, I see the applicant present. Do you guys have a presentation? Ms. Mona, you know the drill. Name and address for the record, and you have all the time you need to present.
Good evening. Mona Malone in 4303. Sorry, y'all. I'm losing my voice. 4303 Waterfall Cove, Pasadena, Texas. The only thing I really wanted to point out is that with the R3 and the R4 zoning, you do have West Oaks Village that is R3 zoned. So it will be similar size lots to what is already there in West Oaks. And West Oaks Village is R4. Those lots are actually a little tad bit smaller to the south of this project. So we feel like it is at least cohesive with what is in the surrounding area. Thank you. And the developer is here if you have any questions.
All right, if we have any questions, we'll call on you here in just a minute. With that, we will turn it over to the public for those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Go to the podium, give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes to speak. Second attempt, those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Third and final time, those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Seeing no one moving that direction, we'll turn it over to council for questions, comments, concerns. Ms. Chavrier?
Yes, I have a question. Will these homes be for sale or for rent? You would go to the podium, please.
My name is George Bisbal. My address is 5161 San Felipe Street, Houston, Texas 77056. So to answer your question, they're going to be for sale.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Tooman?
So in the staff report, it says their impact on existing and future development. I'm reading this, and it basically says staff does not anticipate any negative impact. I'm going to disagree with that, because if I'm looking at this, if this was my house here that is directly across from the ball field, I don't think I would want a bunch of small homes or 38 homes nestled in there. Secondly, it's 38 homes. 38 homes is going to require 2 accesses. Is the plan to tie into Morenci Street? Is there a site plan? I mean, I didn't see one in our packet. Have you guys done a lot layout?
Yeah, actually we have, planning has that. I'm surprised that is not either on the screen, but
I miss it because I didn't see it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the entrance would be only on Fight Road.
One single entrance?
Yeah.
Okay, I believe that there's a life safety ordinance that requires anything over 30 homes to have 2 entrances. And then, so secondly, if you're having 38 homes, you would have to tie into Morenci. Morenci would then go into 518. It would be another outlet into 518. There had been an issue with a road down the road called Piper, and we had to install speed bumps. Also, this is nestled across from the ballpark. If this map were to go out farther, you would see it's also in between two schools. One is on actually there's two on the left, which is 1128 and Fight, and then also on the right, which is Fight and Harkey. And so the traffic in the afternoons and the morning is real heavy there. To go to a higher density would create more traffic. On the weekends, there's obviously the Dad's Club. And if you've ever come out of the Dad's Club on the weekend, it's real heavy in traffic. To put another entrance with another 38 homes across from that, I think we're causing trouble for a traffic problem for Fight. If you do tie into Morenci is some of our oldest residents in Pearland, and I wouldn't want to run another 38 homes of traffic through Morenci, and with the current condition of Morenci, it would have to be repaved, and we would have to look at that too. So I'm just gonna be a no on this, and those are the reasons why.
Okay, questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Has staff seen the layout?
So staff has seen a layout. The applicant did bring a proposal through for pre-development and consultation. The drawing was not a part of the zone change application, which is why it is not being shared with y'all. I will say that zone change applications are not contingent on a site plan. That is just zoning the dirt and allowing for the use of the slightly higher dense lots from the current R1 zoned property.
In terms of connecting to Morenci, even if this stays R1, how does that connection work? Will that come back before us?
It would. So normally it would just follow development patterns. So if a project were to come forward and propose a street, then that would go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a preliminary and final plat with the construction of that new street. Whether Morenci is left as a gated fire access only, or it is proposed for a through, that is up to how the engineering department views the traffic.
That's a big question mark in my mind for the residents on Morenci. Because I remember Piper is a really good cut through until you put speed bumps up. And I don't know. I don't know that we need another north-south connection. Is there any way to get engineering or staff's comments on what that would look like? And I guess Councilman Thurman had a comment about over so many houses, you have to have two points of access. What is that number?
So the fire access requirement and the 2 points of access is anything over 30. I want to say one of the design layouts that we saw did include that higher 38 to it, and they had proposed to have all of the lots have a residential fire sprinkler to it, because that is another option whenever you get over that 30 unit threshold, is for a residential fire sprinkler to be added in with construction.
I think Raj is going to weigh in.
Yeah, thank you for the question. About north-south connection or connection to Morenci, whenever we met with the developer during the pre-development meeting, our recommendation is not to connect to Morenci, but just to have fire access from Morenci. We don't want north-south connection so that becomes speeding lane or roadway for drivers between Broadway and Fight. We have seen that multiple times and multiple areas when we have the straight line connecting 2 points of access, the drivers speeds up there. So the recommendation is not to have. And we haven't seen the TIA. Just looking at the numbers, it won't be the TIA requirement, but we would require TIA, or we base our TIA requirement based on the location and the type of business and all those things. Because of this location, we will require TIA. We haven't set up meeting to schedule the scoping of the TIA and what it should constitute. That will be done only when it gets approved. Then they can spend money to count the traffic and come up with a plan.
All right, great. Thank you for that.
Member Cabo, if I may, there was one other issue, and I don't know if it harmonizes all these things or if it makes it worse. However, the UDC has a provision in it, if I'm recalling it correctly, that says that development needs to connect to existing streets. So the default is you have to connect to Morenci. However, upon their request, if they comply with the fire code by sprinkling the homes, giving that secondary access, the TIA could be used to deviate from that, but that would have to be at the developer's request, and they might not choose to do that, in which case the UDC requirement when they come in for preliminary and final plat would require them to connect to Morenci.
So what you're saying is there's no way to keep them from connecting to Morenci?
Correct. Well, zoning, you can't do it through that way because that would be contract zoning. You're not going to be able to, or conditional zoning, you're not going to be able to do it there.
That was a question I was going to ask.
So as long as they comply with the fire code one way or the other, they could do it that way. But I think the UDC actually requires that connection unless they seek a variance and justify it with the TIA.
Okay. And we've put all the neighboring property owners on notice, as we would in any case?
Yes, sir. So with the 200-foot abutter, I recall seeing that map during the P&Z process for the public hearing, and there was at least one member of the public who was there to ask additional questions specifically about that issue. But you may recall there was an earlier zone change request for this to be multifamily, and I think council at that time, required the outreach to the adjoining neighbors and properties, and also encouraged them to do something less dense than multifamily, which is what you have in front of you today.
So Lawrence, when I go down and I look at the notification list, I only see 4 of the residents on Morenci.
Because it goes within 200 feet.
Right. So not all of the residents.
No, sir. I apologize. If you're asking, did everybody on Morenci Street get the notice? No, sir.
Okay. And then also, I just want to, since my mic is on, I wanted to talk about the fire access gate and the meeting we had, I don't know, a few months ago at Tranquility, and all the people that came out on that. And so I just wanted to remind, the other council members about that.
So for clarification, it's currently R1, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if it remains R1, are they still required to connect to Morenci?
The Unified Development Code discusses the extension of stub streets. So Morenci is a street that stubs into this property. And the Unified Development Code would say if you are subdividing that property, then Morenci needs to continue forward. Through a traffic impact analysis, they can request a variance of the Unified Development Code through the Planning and Zoning Commission to have just a gated fire access be provided instead of extending Morenci through their development.
Okay, so either way, R1 or R3, Morenci is still a factor that we've got to account for. If you put the survey back up, if I'm looking at this right, there's a sewer main that goes basically right down the middle of this piece of property.
Give me just one moment.
It doesn't like you at the moment, it's okay.
Yes, sir, it does.
So, I mean, that's a question for me, and I realize we're not being asked to approve a plat. I don't know how you develop this into a whole bunch of lots and have a road coming through the middle of it with a sewer main under the road. So that
It's in the right of way, not in the road. 60 foot.
depends on where, yeah, depends on where you put the road, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's one of my questions. So essentially, I mean, I guess for the applicant, you're asking to go from R1 to R3 for density purposes, just to be able to put more houses on there than you could fit otherwise?
Yes. Well, if you remember, I was not the owner. I was the builder for some people who wanted to make a multifamily, some buildings, 180 apartments, etc. So for market conditions and also interest rates, etc., they decided not to pursue that project. So me and my partner, we bought the property, and then we're like, okay, let's build houses. So when we were making the calculations, in order to make it feasible and to make sense, we need to build more houses. So this is why we want to put into R3. Yeah, I believe that with R1 we can build 28 houses or maximum 30. With R3 we can do 38. Yeah, with detention, etc. And concerning your question about the pipe, our engineer, of course, we could relocate it, but our engineer, the way we did it, is going to be under the driveway. I mean, you call it a street if you connect it to Morency, but in reality, it's a driveway. And for security reasons, we actually do not, for security reasons, not only for security of burglaries, etc., but also for the children, because these are going to be houses, there are going to be people playing, etc. So we don't want, of course, any access north to south because of that, like they were saying, cars are going to speed up and etc.
So the sewer main's going to be under all the driveways is the game plan. And you're planning on not connecting to Morency, which means you're going to have to sprinkle the houses.
Or make connect Morency only. We actually discussed it with the fire marshal back when we were talking about the apartments. And if we put a fire gate there, that would be acceptable for them. But I mean, this was just preliminary. We did not put anything.
You're talking about a fire gate at your property line, not turning Morency into a fire gate.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know. This is a tricky one. I mean, with the Member Tuman's point, with all we ever hear, anything that has anything to do near the Dad's Club is traffic's already terrible, and the more density, the worse it gets. And so, I mean, this is a tough one for me.
Right. Mr. Koza?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Darren, on this right here, we already shot down a multifamily. If we shoot this down, how close do we get into regulatory takings?
Well, again, the property is currently zoned R1, and so there's an actual use for the property and an investment-backed expectation on that property. So I think the things that have been discussed here this evening, if the council were to go that route, are viable reasons and a rational basis if the council wanted to not zone that property as R3. So doesn't mean somebody doesn't ever want to make a challenge, but I'm just letting you know I feel like that there's a sound basis based on the discussion this evening.
Just wanted to make sure where we stood on it as far as that goes.
Any other questions, comments?
Can I ask a question, Mayor? So right now, as is, R1 can go through and the UDC would allow them or even recommend them to push Morency through north-south. But we've got a developer and landowner here saying, I want R3. We're saying, okay, if you can put up a fire gate. So I would, how can we get there legally or somewhere to say, yeah, you can have 5 more houses, but we don't want you to push Morency through. We want the fire gate there. Robin, is that a good synopsis? And Thurman's pointing at me.
Well, I was just going to say, I believe that the way you get there is through a PD. I mean, because otherwise, straight up zoning is not going to get you there.
There was a consensus. Sorry to interrupt. There was a consensus that I thought I heard that no matter how it develops, it has to tie into Morency. And so, if it is a R1 and it's less than 30 homes, then and the street is less than, I don't remember the length, 700?
600, I think 600 and something, yeah.
600 and something feet, then it would only require one access, correct, to fight? So there would be no, in that case, so if there was detention on the backside near Morenci and it was R1, less than 30 homes and short of 700 feet, then there would be no tie-in to Morenci. So I don't think that there's a scenario that this has to tie into Morenci. It would have to tie in Morenci if it's R3 and 38 homes, which is why I'm a no here. So,
and just that was a question I had. Just goes back to the UDC. This is the property is 1,271 foot long, so I'm assuming the block length is that. And again, we haven't seen their layout, and the layout is not part of the zoning. It has to be, it has to follow rules and regulations. I mean, I guess I don't know how it would jog and make a block length 600 feet. But if they did that and didn't have two accesses, now you're talking, instead of 28 foot back of curb, you're talking 32 feet back of curb. If I remember the UDC correctly, you have to widen the street. Is that correct?
Correct. So the provision in the UDC basically says if you're exceeding the maximum block length, which is that 600 to 700 foot, depending on the zoning district, then you have to increase your provided right-of-way width and increase it from a 50-foot local street to a 60-foot right-of-way. And then, again, as Mayor Collier, have a good memory on the UDC, recommend you for the UDC committee. In order to have that enhanced pavement width so that way additional cars can have access through that road. I do want to go back to the original statement of this property touches Morenci. So the right-of-way of Morenci dead ends into the north property line of this property. So the UDC discusses expansion of those stub streets, and when a street dead ends, normally that you would expect that street to continue. And from a resident standpoint, if you have I'm going to use tonight's example, if you've got a dance mom who's friends with the dance mom on the other side of the street, they maybe shouldn't necessarily have to get in their car and go around, fight, and then come back on Broadway on the other side of Morenci. That's part of the reason why we have this extension of roads.
This is going to be an issue that we see over and over again, because we're getting to these, 10, 11, 15, 15 acre, parcels that we're going to have as residential plays, whether they're higher density, lower density, or whatever. These same issues are going to come into play more and more. And this is a tough piece of property to develop because it's narrow. The only thing you can do is a single street through. So and again, sounds like whether it's R1 or R2 or R3 or even R4, connecting to Morenci is what the UDC is going to require, unless they have some other evidence to be able to put in a panic gate. So, all right. Last call, questions, comments? Seeing none, we will close this public hearing and move to new business item number 5. Mr. Tooman, present that, please.
Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance number 200M-261. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report, input from council, questions, comments.
Member Tooman?
I think Coker mentioned something about a PD, but Lawrence said he had a different way to solve it.
I don't know if it's a resolution of the issue, and I'm trying to recall what we discussed during the pre-development meeting. But if the secondary access is only meeting the UDC portion of the requirement and it's not being used for fire apparatus access, I think the concern is that the current conditions of Morenci, if it's going to be used as a secondary access, have to actually meet the access requirements. So if it is not currently wide enough, if its pavement won't support a fire truck the way that it needs to, they would have to build Morenci up to that standard. This developer would have to build it because they need it for the secondary access.
That's an if.
That's an if. And again, we only know the site plan that we were provided, and we didn't have all the data at the time. So my thought was that if Morenci doesn't have to be built, or the developer's incentive, I guess, would be to have that be not have it be fire apparatus access. They're going to sprinkle the homes instead of doing that, because sprinkling the homes saves them the expense of building Morenci up to current standards to serve as fire apparatus, which would incentivize them to seek the variance for the UDC requirement and would accomplish what I think the goal is of some members of City Council tonight. Understanding my advice today might make some happy and some sad, but the job is to explore those options.
So, thank you. Again, since there's no site plan, I mean, you guys have detention?
May I?
You may.
So I do have a couple of things with me. I do have a proposed layout of the neighborhood. We also have the map showing the notices that were given out. The detention, depending on which way the roadway goes, the detention would either be a long, narrow detention that sat behind one row of the homes, or if they were able to not connect to Morenci, there could even be some detention there. So it really depends on how that lays out. Part of the issue with the larger lots is that you do have an existing water line that currently runs through the middle of the property. So you may end up with, if you stay with the R1, some really wide, not very deep lots. So I don't know how well those would sell for someone who wants a larger lot. So the considerations are definitely there. The developer is willing to, of course, work with the city if the fire marshal is comfortable one way or the other. But it definitely has some difficult issues to work through on developing the property.
So a long, narrow detention behind the houses or behind the fence?
I can bring this to you if you want. You want to look at this? Y'all can pass it.
I mean, I got a pretty clear picture of what that looks like. I don't need to see it. Again, it's not something I would be in favor of.
Yeah, Mona, do you want to bring that up to the city secretary? We can pass that down. Mr. Koza.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask Mona a question when she got back, so give me 2 seconds. So, as Mona, as far as West Oaks south of here, did you reach out to their HOA?
West Oaks Village, yes. So we have not spoken to them on this layout, but when we proposed the apartments, the council chambers were full. So they were very much aware of us wanting to develop this. There was one neighbor that came to the planning and zoning meeting and just had a question, but they seemed to be in support of it. So we've not had anyone else give any negative feedback. We feel like it fits. You do have the multifamily, one tract over. You have R4 to the south surrounding the Dad's Club, and R3 for West Oaks.
All right, thank you. Martin or Vance, as far as the characterization of the one one person that came from West Oaks, was that an accurate statement there?
Fairly accurate. I also remember our Chair Eisenberg said that he spoke with the HOA president, I believe, and that they were okay with the proposal.
Did you say Commissioner Eisenberg?
Chairperson Eisenberg.
Oh, I thought it was Henry. Sorry. Daryl, would you mind going up to the podium?
Sorry. Hey, Vince, on the current lot they have, how many homes would they be able to build? 30?
Yeah, I believe that's what the developer said earlier, is that at R1 they could do 30. Yes, sir.
So they wouldn't have to come here and they can just go start building 30 homes?
Yes, sir.
And they want to push it to 38?
Or he may have said 28. I can't remember if he said 28 or 30, but yes, sir.
38.
Well, I mean, under the R1. Right. It was 28 or 30 under the R1.
Yeah, and if we go to R3, it's 38. But this is under the plans that our engineer made. There might be maybe 36, 38. We don't know because, of course, we have to go to planning to know exactly all the requirements, all the engineering that we need for the driveway and for the, the easements, etc. But yeah, it seems like 38. Yeah,
That's a fair. And do we have any plans on when Fight Road is on the capital improvement?
I know there's sections of it in the drainage portion of it. I'm not sure the extent of Fight in the drainage. I know it's going to be rehabbed. I'm not sure if it's being rebuilt. Trent or see Raj here. I'm not sure if you. There's Lorenzo. I'm not sure if you know that question off the top of your head.
Can you, Mona, I don't know you, but this can go all night. And I would ask you a couple of questions. I guess just show us a layout would help. At least one of the questions I saw, we haven't seen a layout. If you guys don't mind providing a little bit better layout. And really, for my sake, we're talking about 8 lots. I mean, exactly. I think if you guys could show, because at the end of the day, I understand Councilmember Truman's concerns. Sorry, it's a long day for me. I apologize. And I'm bad with names, so please forgive me. We're talking about 8 more family, right? End of the day. I mean, plus or minus 2. So the traffic is going to come either way. But I guess the question is, does it financially make sense? And I think tying up the road is a big question for me, the traffic. So I think if we can get clarifications on that, I would rather table this. You guys go figure all the details out and bring it back. Because if it's today, my answer is no. So I would ask you if we can table this and you heard the concerns, just work out the details instead of trying to do it tonight.
I'd like Raj to answer the question on the capital improvement. That question was asked.
Yes, sir. The capital improvement project is for the drainage only, so that will include milling and overlay of Fight Road, but it will not be bring it to up to code and widening the roadways. So it will not.
So it's only rehabbing the road.
Correct. That's correct. And also, I want to touch a little bit on connection to Morenci. If we look just east side, the subdivision we're talking about, West Oaks Boulevard, we get multiple questions and comments from residents because that segment of the roadway connects 518 and Fight. And there's always a speeding problem, and we get the complaints all the time. So yes, UDC has that requirement for a particular purpose to move the traffic from point A to point B without losing time. But when we get that benefit, we may have trouble, speeding trouble. And when we want to install a roadway, a residential roadway, then there will be kids, and the moms and dads will be always worrying about the speeding. So yes, there is benefit of connecting those two streets, but there is also issues with what happens when we tie in those. It will be caught through traffic issues. That's why, yes, there is UDC requirement, and there's a way to avoid that potential issues or potential traffic issues in future. So we will immediately start getting the speed hump requests, and that is hard to go against too. So again, just showing, and I saw that like our sanitary sewer line, most of the time the city is okay with sanitary sewer line under the pavement, but not for the water line. So we can always adjust the sanitary sewer line, manhole, and it can be under the roadway. I don't know where it falls when we see the real design. That I don't know, but normally we are okay with sanitary sewer on the pavement too.
All right, I just, those questions had been asked, so I wanted to get them on the record before we made any other. Do you have a question, comment?
Yes, I'd ask Daryl Eisenberg to step up and characterize before Rushi took it away.
Yes, I was contacted by the HOA president, Andy Rathburn, and he told me at that time that he was in full support of this. He said that the other things that had been brought up with the multifamily and stuff, they were totally against. They understand that this property at some point is going to get developed, and he would rather see something like the R3 go in than have to keep fighting on the multifamily.
Okay. And then as far as the owner of the property, they had made mention about a PD. If this was to fail, would you be willing to come back with a PD to kind of sidestep some of the issues?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now the issue is just rezoning it. We haven't done the engineering and all that stuff because we don't know. If it's R1, maybe we'll build. Probably we'll build with R1 too. But if we get the R3, maybe we cannot put the 38 lots because we need to give more at the front, more at the back. But that's actually the idea. We have to maximize, obviously, but we don't know if it's going to be 38, 36. But yeah.
I would just like to remind council that if we go back down the plan development route, that requires a workshop, and a workshop is something that's got to have both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council hear that item, and then it also causes delays for the applicant to go and write and hire professionals to do the design work to create the plan development document.
Right, but if that's a way for him to be able to get where he needs to go to, that's all I'm.
Well,
It's also currently zoned R1.
And just, on that, the through a PD gives some flexibility, but it also gives us the opportunity to negotiate how it goes into Morenci, whether it does or not, and how we make that work. We also have a template that can be followed, so they're not having to spend a ton of dollars doing that. But we can also see some, how-to on a site plan if we get there. So it'd be certainly worth having that conversation. So, Mr. Tooman, you had a question?
Yeah, just one final comment. You guys have already purchased the land?
Yes.
Okay, so you purchased, if I'm getting your story straight, you were a builder helping someone that wanted to put multifamily in there, correct?
Yes, 3 people I know. I mean, they have a lot of properties.
And their
They hired me as a
multifamily
builder.
zoning was declined?
No, it was not declined. They didn't pursue it for many reasons, business reasons, and then etc. They decided not to pursue the apartments, and they wanted to get rid of the lot. And then me and my partner, we bought it from them. So
Okay.
I'm 50% owner of the lot. Yeah.
But when
Now
you
I'm gonna be
purchased
the
it, you understood that the zoning for R3 may not go through?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Last call for questions, comments. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Tooman?
No.
Member Patel?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
No.
Member Koza?
Nay.
Member Travadilla?
No.
Member Byram?
No.
Member Cade?
No.
Motion fails 0-7.
Thank you.
Is everybody up for moving forward, or does anybody need a break? Do what? Yeah, break wouldn't hurt. Let's take a 10-minute recess at 8:50. Good job by all. So with that, council, with your concurrence, I'm going to skip down to items 11, 12, and 13. We have an item here locally to take care of, and then we've got 2 bid items, contractors here, so if we could dispense of those, and then everything else is budget related. That's fine. All right, so with that, Mr. Patel, would you present item 11, please?
Yes, Mayor. Considering possible action, resolution R2024-180. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Staff report.
Yes, Mayor, council members, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. This is a request for a variance from our alcohol distance regulations. And the owner of the property at 11836 Broadway, this is located adjacent to Shadow Creek High School, plans to develop a retail grocery store at that location. And because it's a grocery store, in order for them to sell alcohol at this location, they would need a variance from the alcohol. Currently, you cannot sell alcohol or off-premise consumption within 300 feet of the public school that's located there because they share a property line. And I'm going to ask Josh if he could pull that item up specifically. We're on item 11. Yes, thank you. You'll see, we're going to scroll through till we get to a couple of the next one after that, I believe. There we go. There's a good aerial photo with the area in question here. So if you'll notice, the blue area is the site, the property that is seeking the variance. And then, as you can see outlined in red there, it is adjacent to the high school property line. That is Shadow Creek High School there. And because they share that property line, they are directly adjacent. They don't meet the 300-foot requirement. However, our city ordinance does allow a variance in this circumstance, and the city council can grant a variance if the governing body determines that enforcement of the regulation in a particular instance is not in the best interest of the public, that it constitutes a waste or inefficient use of land or other resources, creates an undue hardship on an applicant for a license or permit, does not serve its intended purpose, is not effective or necessary, or excuse me, or for any other reason, after consideration of health, safety, and welfare of the public and the equities of the situation, determines it's in the best interest of the community. And the applicant is seeking the ability to sell wine and beer for off-premise consumption. That would be the sole purposes of this, and it is for a retail grocery store. It should be noted that restaurants in that area, there's some restaurants, excuse me, in the buildings located there where it says Lotus Seafood, Italianos, those restaurants have the ability to serve alcohol for on-premise consumption, and they are seeking the ability to sell for off-premise consumption, wine and beer. I'd be happy to answer any further questions about the law or this particular situation. I've been working to get this documentation and with the applicant who is here this evening and would like to share at a certain point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments from council? Ms. Chavarria?
I have a question. So this site could not ever, I guess, be a liquor store, correct? It's only grocery store or to be able to serve off-premises wine and beer.
Correct. The variance request is limited actually to for a retail grocer, period. Nobody else could sell. Now, somebody could come in with a restaurant and for on-premise consumption, but if somebody wanted to come in for a package store or something of that nature, that actually would require a CUP under our UDC regulations.
Okay, thank you.
And to play that out, Darren, so let's assume we approve this, whatever happens doesn't happen, grocer doesn't come in, but it gets developed as, a pad site and restaurants locate there. The variance request would have to then, it would negate the first one because it never materialized. It would then come with a second variance request if in the event that happens.
That is correct. And really about the only thing that would be able to locate there without a variance are the restaurants that have a food and beverage certificate.
Right. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess my comment is, someone could pull up, go inside, get a case, a 12-pack of beer, and then go sit on the tailgate and watch a high school baseball game.
True,
I
and
mean,
they could also go to HEB and do the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, this literally abuts the property line. It makes me remember at the corner of 518 Liberty, where we've got the new international school, charter school. I think we were running into a similar issue, and that had it abuts Shady Crest Elementary, and that got turned down. So I struggle with this one since the property lines do abut each other.
Patel?
Thank you, Mayor. So Darren, just again, hear this out. I'm excited about the potential store based on what I believe to be coming. What if that name changes and they say, we're not interested in this, but we passed this, and it's a grocery store, but not the same quality? Can they still use that license?
Yes, this would be a consent to off-premise sales for wine and beer by a retail grocer located at that location. It's not specific to a named business.
Okay, so it's going to run with that land once we pass it?
That is correct.
There's no expiration date or any kind of change. If there is a change on their side, we just give up that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Patel?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
No.
Member Koza?
Nay.
Member Chavarria?
No.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Torn. Conscience says no.
Member Tuman?
No.
Motion fails. 5-2.
2-5, right?
2-5.
All right. With that, we'll move to item number 12. Mr. Koza, would you present it, please?
Yes, Mayor, consideration and possible action, resolution number R2024-170. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report, and I guess really staff report covers both 11 and 12.
I can cover both. They're slightly different contracts. So this item actually awards, awards a contract to GFL Environmental for the disposal of biosolids from our wastewater plants as well as our surface water treatment plant. So what they provide is roll-offs at our plants for the dewatered sludge that is a byproduct of the treatment process, and then that gets hauled off and disposed of properly. We did add additional funds to the contract for this new award to account for the additional sludge that will be produced at the surface water treatment plant now that it is in operation. It's a unit price contract, so we only actually pay for what we use by the unit cost. So we recommend award in the estimated amount of $1.15 million.
All right. Open it up to questions, comments, concerns from council. Byron?
Yeah, the only comment that I would make is I know we're going to talk about budget here in a little while. This right here, I asked staff, I mean, these are considerable increases. It's 29.5% increase on this one. It's a 17.5% increase on the next one. And I point that out just to say, when we start talking about budget and tax rate and all that kind of stuff, this is what affects our tax rate and the cost of things going up so much. I know there's a lot of talk about no new revenue.
Your water and sewer rates on this one.
Yeah, but
right. Correct.
Correct. It comes from, but we are seeing these kinds of increases across the board in all different areas. So as people see us discussing these things, this is the kind of stuff that impacts these decisions we have to make.
Any other questions, comments? Madam Secretary, call for the vote. This will be item 12.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavadia,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tooman,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, Ms. Chavaria, item 13, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action, Resolution R 2024-169. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any addition on that?
Sure, just real quick, this item is to award a contract to MagnaFlow Environmental. So similar to the last one, but a slightly different part of the process at the wastewater and water plant is this is for wet sludge transportation and disposal services. So we use this to clean out our lift stations. We have 70+ lift stations across the city, basins at our wastewater plants as well as the surface water plants. And again, we have some additional funds included for the operation of the surface water treatment plant. And again, a unit price contract, so we only pay for what we use. So we recommend award in the estimated amount of $1.05 million. Thank you.
All right, open up for questions, comments. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Chavadia,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Toom,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Koza.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Oh, that was an aye.
It was aye. 7-0.
I was aye.
7-0. 7-0. He didn't say no.
7-0.
He said aye.
7-0.
He's the only one that says nah.
Right. Okay, so back to public hearing number 6. This is a public hearing on proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. With that, we'll turn it over to staff for presentation.
So thank you, Mayor. The presentation tonight is a culmination of significant work by our staff, our budget staff, and the city council over the past several months. We've presented this information over many sessions and months, and the presentation tonight is intended to provide a high-level overview of the results of that work. The budgeting process always starts with our February strategic planning session. We follow that by our early budget input session in April. We had our comprehensive CIP workshop in June. And then in August, we had 3 budget workshops and discussions for council input on the budget itself. And then in August, council did set the maximum tax rate at 63.5 cents, which is over 2 cents lower than the current tax rate. And that leads to tonight. So through those discussions, we did tweak some of the things and completed some of the following to establish the budget and the tax rate that is before you tonight. We did review a no new revenue budget option, saw the impacts of that. In the PEDC section, we did eliminate the debt cell for FY25, and then we also were able to lower the proposed water and sewer rate increase down to 7% versus what was contemplated in the early part of the budget discussions. So moving on, this budget does meet many of our strategic priorities and milestones, and it does so by planning for the future. We've got new fire apparatus included in the budget, a focus on customer service, as well as investments in our people. Preparing for any eventuality, we have additional public safety capacity in this budget, and a focus on asset management and Pearland Water, and then preserving the community with the New Streets crew, as well as a focus on the Old Town revitalization. We achieve all these things while lowering the tax rate over 2 cents. And as I mentioned, the water and sewer rate increase of only 7%, when a year ago, that projection was as high as 17%. So for tonight's agenda, the presentation will actually cover items 6 through 10 on our agenda. Specifically, we have the public hearing, which we're conducting right now. We will cover item 6, which is the first reading of the budget ordinance. That actually requires 2 votes. A vote, 1, to approve the budget, and then 2, a second vote to ratify the property tax revenue increase reflected in the budget. So when we get to item 6, we've got to take two votes there. Then item 7 will be the first reading of the ordinance for the tax rate, which requires a supermajority for approval, which of the entire council, which is 5 yeses. And it also requires specific motion language that we'll have to read as part of that to meet the state laws. Item 8 is the first reading of the ordinance for our non-development fees. And then item 9 will be the resolution adopting the 5-year capital improvement program. And then item 10 will be the first reading of the ordinance to modify the retiree health care coverage. So moving along, so for the budget public hearing, we're going to go through the budget highlights. We'll touch on the general fund overview with supplementals, revenues and expenditures. We'll do the same walking through the enterprise fund, and we'll touch on the Pearland Economic Development Corporation budget, and then walk through the future dates for moving through the final process of adopting the budget and tax rate. And so just before we jump in and I hand it off to Rachel, I want to just give a quick reminder of some of the identified needs we were not able to afford in this budget that we are deferring. And when we defer needed needs and expenditures, we often pay the price like we have recently for streets and as well as fire apparatus. So some of those things not in the budget is the additional funds we need annually going into the streets and sidewalk infrastructure fund. That would meet our sustainable infrastructure strategic priority, but we're not putting the amount of dollars in there that's recommended. Recommended is about $4.2 million annually. We have 51 vehicles in our fleet that have met the replacement criteria. That would cost an additional about $4.8 million. So we're extending the life of using those vehicles. We replace vehicles on a regular schedule and get them in a motor pool as part of our resilient finances strategic priority. And then we had $5.9 million of staffing requests, $4.5 million of that in public safety, meeting our safe community strategic priority that we were not able to move forward with. And then I think one of the biggest ones for me, along with the streets, is in resilient finances. We've established our capital replacement fund for the IT fund as well as the facilities fund, but we have not put any dollars into those capital replacement funds to date. And our target for those combined is about $7.5 million to have in those, so that when we have to replace a roof, or we have to replace servers, or we have to replace a significant piece of software that runs a significant portion of the city, we've got those dollars set aside to make that happen. So while the budget does meet a lot of our needs, just wanted to put it in perspective with some of the things we're not able to do as well. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Rachel Winslow, for our Office of Management and Budget, to present the budgets tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, for your time this afternoon. So our budget picture for the general fund is a balanced budget where our annual revenues, including transfers, exceed our annual operating costs. The general fund meets the policy reserve minimum of 25%. And this is all established on a proposed tax rate of 63.5 cents, of which 30 cents will be for debt service and 33.5 cents will be for operations and maintenance. The budget was built on our strategic priorities, the how, what, and why of what we do, and all supplementals are tied to these strategic priorities for fiscal year 25. Our supplementals include a records analyst, as well as additional officers in the Police Patrol Division, Animal Control Officers, Crime Scene Supervisor, and EMS Clinical Manager. In sustainable infrastructure, we're committing to our street maintenance team and a project management team. And for connected community, we're including a Chief Customer Experience Officer and parks employees that are offset by revenue creation. Our general fund revenues total at $124.4 million. Property taxes, sales taxes, and charges for services, which include the TERS administrative fee, are our primary sources of revenue. For the general fund expenditures, our commitment to public safety is indicated here, as well as our commitment to staff, as that makes up a majority of the costs in public safety, with additional costs in public works, general government, parks and rec, and community services, for a total expenditure budget of $123 million. For our enterprise fund, the city is required to bring in enough money to pay for our debt and operations, and so we are proposing a 7% rate increase for fiscal year 25, which means an average household in Pearland using approximately 6,000 gallons of water per month will pay an additional $7.06. The history of rate increases is reflected here. So here we have the different increases that we'll see across residential and commercial usage based off of meter size for water and sewer. And then this is a simplified version of our rate model that shows that we're projecting the 7% increase here, and we meet our bond covenant ratio as well as our reserve requirement, and will do so for all 5 years of the rate model. Pearland Water added additional staff under the Sustainable Infrastructure Strategic Priority, including an asset reliability team and a deputy director of utilities. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Epperson.
Thank you, Rachel. So touching base on the Pearland Economic Development Corporation budget. So we have proposed revenue of $16.6 million, expenses of $42.6 million. With the three major expenditures in the FY25 budget, which represent 62% of those total expenditures, are the Hickory Slough Sports Complex expansion, the Industrial Drive reconstruction, and then the sanitary sewer extension in the Smith Ranch Road area. Of the proposed 25 expenses, $34 million is earmarked for infrastructure improvements, or basically 80% of the total expenditures of the EDC. And then just wanted to touch base that we did eliminate the debt sale that was proposed for FY25, and we'll look at that, the need for that again in FY26. So you see the total revenues here over expenditures, $26 million there over the expenditures. We'll achieve that by drawing down the fund balance to about $5.5 million. So then touching base on our, this moves into the next item on your agenda tonight. So after the budget and the tax rate, we've got the non-development fee ordinance. And what that takes care of is it adopts the water and sewer rate changes. It reduces the temporary food handling back down to $75, which we recently had an increase there. That gets us temporarily through until we relook at that food handling ordinance again. And then we've got the contractual changes, which are really pass-through cost that we have to change in the non-development fee ordinance, and that's for solid waste. When we, in parks rental, when we rent out our facilities for parks, we have janitorial services that clean those up. We've had some rate increases there, so we pass those on to the folks that rent those spaces. Same thing with meters. We had a cost increase for meters that we pass on to the customers, and then credit card processing fees. So the non-development fees takes care of the update there, takes care of all these items. As far as the capital improvement program, what we do tonight through a resolution is an adoption of the 5-year CIP. And then we also, through the budget process itself, adopt the FY25 budget expenditures and the funding sources for FY25. And then the other 4 years are for planning purposes as part of the capital improvement program. I do want to point out that once we get through the budget process, one of the first things we do that's the next step in the budget process is we will have our intent to reimburse for our expenditures in the capital improvement program so that we can start working on all the projects in the FY25 budget. And we plan on having that back in front of you at the October 14th City Council meeting. So just wanted to give a touch base on what's coming up. So what we have here is the full 5-year CIP by project type and by year and the totals there. And you see the FY25 is what will be adopted this year as part of the budget process. And then moving into the next slide, we've got all of our funding sources. And so we do have some projects in here that would be potentially funded by future GOs. Those are identified needs that we don't have funding sources for, and it's just part of the planning document itself. Those will require council and voter approval in the future before moving forward with any of those funded by that future GO bond package line there. But the rest of them are either existing GO bonds or other projects with other funding sources or projects we've already approved moving forward with certificates of obligation. And then the last item we have on our agenda tonight associated with the budget is the retiree health coverage. This is the rule of 80 that was a consensus plan based on the workshop discussion at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago. And what that means is that a combination of age and years of service with Pearland, once that equals 80, if someone chooses to retire, the city will provide health care coverage for our lowest plan for the employee only until they reach the age of 65. Or if they choose to go to work somewhere else in the interim that provides coverage, then they would come off ours as well. So we got to make changes to that ordinance as well to adopt that. So last couple of slides, we walked through just everything that's on the agenda tonight, and then we'll go through kind of what the schedule looks like moving forward on the next slide. So here we are tonight. We've got the budget public hearing and then the first reading of everything. And then we'll come back on the 23rd. That night we'll have the public hearing for the tax rate, and then the second reading for our budget, second reading for tax rate, second reading for non-development, and second reading for the retiree health care ordinance. And that will conclude this year's budget cycle, and we'll get to work on the next year's. So appreciate your time tonight, and entertain any questions or comments at this point.
Okay. Here in just a minute, we'll throw it open to the public. This is a public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget. Anyone in the audience like to offer testimony on this year's budget can go to the podium, give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes to speak. Second request, anyone wanting to offer testimony? Third and final time, anyone wishing to offer testimony on this year's proposed budget? Seeing no one moving in that direction, we'll throw this open to City Council for any questions, comments, or concerns. Ms. Cade?
I just, I've thought about this, asked a ton of questions about this, about the tax rate. I wanted it to be lower. Bothered Trent constantly about it. And ultimately, I guess it is lower. I mean, it's 2 cents lower than it was last year. Along with that, no, we're not at no new revenue, but that's impossible with the inflation the way it is, and to have the city work the way it does. I wanted to say that I saw firsthand this past week our fire department at work. I was across the street from a house fire in Pearland, a house with kids, a whole family home, and our fire department was there in so fast and put the fire out so fast, and the family was okay. I mean, the house is not, but the family and the pets and everybody got out, and it really hit home to me how important it is that we have the city services that we provide. It hit home 3 years ago when they saved my husband's life also, when he had a massive heart attack and almost died. So I think we lowered the water rate. We added a streets and drainage crew. We're focusing on public safety. Pearland was listed as one of the safest cities in America. We're doing a lot of really great things, and the tax rate is 2 cents lower than it was last year. So as much as I agonized over this, and we're taking good care of our employees. So I say all that to say I think it's where it should be. Thank you.
Comments? Any other questions, comments from council? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, let me say thank you to Rachel. First, let me apologize to you also, because I called you by a different name. and you will get used to that. I just am. So I really do appreciate, and some of you know, I literally had Trent, Victor, and Ron, and Rachel in the room for 8 hours going through page by page, line by line. And I do understand the needs of the city, and I do agree with you, Member Cade. But I do find that there is room for us to improve. And I certainly understand the services we provide, but there's also, if you spend enough time reading between the lines, I think there is opportunities for us to rip this budget apart. And I'm not saying that in saying I don't appreciate the staff and all the people that are behind the scenes that make our life easier every day. But I think what we do forget is, yes, we did reduce the pennies by 2 pennies, but the values have gone up significantly. So when you tell your constituents that we reduce the tax rate, remember, they don't care about the rate, they care about what they paid. And I think it's really next year, I would ask this council to challenge the city, because there are departments that we should look at and even look at long-term and plan. And Carrie, I hate to pick on you, but I will. The Parks and Rec department, tear it apart. Get rid of the natatorium. Look at long-term planning. Maybe we need to consider getting out of the business of being an entertainment venue and going back to our basics and being a city that focuses on first responders, infrastructure, instead of losing significant amount of money. If you look at this budget, there is a lot of money in the Parks and Rec, which we never recoup. And the natatorium is the biggest money pit. And I say that, and I know many of you may not agree with it, and I respect that. There are opportunities if you're willing to roll up your sleeve, if you're willing to put the time. And one thing I will ask Trent, that we go through this budget a lot sooner if possible, or at least meet early to understand what the department needs are ahead of time. I think to go through 400 pages in a month trying to run your own business and families is difficult. And I would ask each of the council members for next year, be focused, be realistic, and get your priorities early and stick to them. Because there is opportunity in this budget to trim it down and still meet our essential goals.
Before you do, I want to address a little bit of that, and I welcome those comments. I think they're great. I think there's always ways that if we can improve, we should. But when it comes to essentially what I hear is this is done at the last minute and we don't have time to really go through it. I would welcome you to spend your time and effort and go to the legislature and lobby the legislature on a better timeline that gives us that opportunity. It's the legislative process and their timeline that dictates when we get the final value. So I would welcome you to go with me this next spring and lobby our members of the legislature to give us more time to actually do that, because that's the timeline that we're on. I'd welcome that, because they need to hear from you and I and our staff and others the bind they put us in at the last minute, because we follow a very strict timeline that is set forth by the legislature on when we get that budget. And so we could be the city of Houston and go off of some fictitious value and set our budget much earlier. That's what they do. And then they end up just amending their budget throughout the year to meet the values. And so I would welcome that opportunity. We're going to meet with legislative folks, between now and legislative session. We need to ask for more time. But instead, what they've done is they've given the appraisal district more and more and more time because of protest. And again, that's the legislative process. That's the appraisal process. And, within 5 to 7 days of getting final appraisal numbers, they have to do the final crunching of the numbers to come out. Secondly, every member of this council, with the exception of Mr. Byram, who wasn't on the council, but he did participate, or was there most of the day, we participated in a goal-setting workshop. And that's when we need to give this comment and direction to our staff. And coming out of that, they then go to work on a budget based on the priorities that this council set. And so we're going to do that again. This year, it's actually going to be a little bit sooner. I think it'll be right towards the end of January as opposed to February, just because of events that are happening in February that are going to make it, push up, which will help. It'll be a little bit sooner in setting that priority. We have early input budget session in April where we do hear from staff, where we do hear from priorities amongst staff. So what you're saying there, we have heard and do, and I agree with you. We should be putting our stamp of approval, or we need to be critiquing, or we need to be digging and tearing things apart during those moments. And so I would ask each one of us, as we have those, take them seriously. This is part of the work of council, because it all culminates in a night like tonight, a year from now. And so that's all I would ask, is that we do that, each and every one of us as we move forward. You were going to say something.
Yeah, and Mayor, let me clarify myself. We're waiting on the appraisal value. That's just telling us the revenue we're going to get from property taxes. But certainly we can discuss where our priorities on expenditures is. We can discuss that much earlier. And we certainly can understand where the expense side is. And really, end of the day, that's all we're talking about. We're not really talking about the revenue side. More importantly, we're talking focus on the expenditures. And that doesn't have anything to do with the rules of engagement by the state. I mean, the rules of engagement for the state is really for the appraisal district to turn the value over. Right. So my question and concern, and again, I'm learning through this process. It's been a little bit over a year for me. And you're right. I was there at the last meeting, and obviously it's intimidating, for me at least it was, to understand and try to grasp all this moving pieces. And I hear you loud and clear, and believe me, I'll be very vocal. And I hope the council, who in the shadows also have the concern, are vocal and give very clear directions to staff that, hey, when the budget comes next year, this is where we need to be. And I think, again, when I went through this budget, it's a little different. For me, it was because I see areas as a conservative to say where we're going down a path, a rabbit hole, is becoming very dark. And if we keep going down this rabbit hole, we're going to hit $1 billion eventually in bonds. We haven't there yet, but we will. We're getting, I feel like, close to it. Or debt. I shouldn't say bonds, but debt. And I think it's a scary thought for a community that's 140, and I think someone told me we may peak out at 180. And I think it's concerning. And I think we need to kind of look at where the future goes. And I'm not saying the budget every year will not increase. Not saying that at all. All I'm saying is there are places of opportunity, and that's all I'm asking this council to look at.
No, I think it's a wise counsel, and it's a wise comment. We should always be looking at opportunities. So,
yeah, I would like to add to that. I think that when we are working on our strategic planning, I think we need to look at our priorities and then add an associated cost to that. And I do agree with Councilmember Patel. We can look at the expenditure side of it, But I think that if we are going to prioritize and look at strategic planning, what are those costs associated to those items? So I'd like to see us dig a little deeper when we do our next planning.
I agree. Also, what he said is right. We don't have enough time with it. And if we can get that part of it earlier and work on that, then when we get the rest of it, at least, I mean, that gives us some extra time because we all, have other jobs, that at the end of the day, if we have more time, however we can get it,
right,
that would help. And everything he says is, he's right. So, and I will be vocal at the.
Mr. Tooman?
So I'm just going to say I'll be starting to work on next year's budget now. And so the thing is, when I first got up here, I asked the same question that remember Byram did. Hey, can we get this earlier? And everyone laughed, right? And it's like, oh, yeah. But there are ways, because I'll tell you today, I was out visiting, a park that's in the budget, but our parks money, our tree money, our EDC money, those budgets are not set by tax values. And with those budgets, we get projects. And in our budget, we're approving not only the expenditures and the budget, but we're also more or less approving projects. So a list of those projects and how that money will be spent prior to the actual tax assessed value, that's a way we can get information earlier. Another thing is, in that's the thing of the different buckets of money. And in those buckets of money, we handcuff ourselves on how this money can be spent. And so moving forward from tonight, I think a visit of how that money can be spent and looking at some of those things will help prepare us for next year's budget. Just know that's where I'll be coming from.
Good comment. And I think which is important to be active and attentive during our capital improvement plan, CIP workshops that we have throughout the year, because I believe each one of the projects that are in that budget were discussed in and presented during those CIP workshops. And again, we might miss one. I get that. But the information is there. So it's meant to be along the way rather than, because prior to that, you saw the CIP in basically one meeting and trying to digest CIP all at once versus 4 over the course of the year and giving you the time to digest it, because those are, our CIP is larger than the regular budget. So those are humongous dollars, and understanding how those are being spent. So then they all get rolled up into the budget, eventually. So asking those questions during the CIP, where's the money coming from? Is it coming from a special fund? Is it coming from EDC? Is it coming from tree money or park dedication fees and those types of things? All need to be asked and answered during that. It can be asked and answered now. What I'm saying is it's presented at that point in time as well. Questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess along with that, I've been up here for a few years. That's where we've got to stop and be critical on that quarterly basis so that we can give staff direction then, so we're not, as much as we hate waiting until the end to get the budget, it's got to be miserable on staff to give them curveballs right here at the end as well. So I think, I don't even know how to do it, but just a more deliberate check-in, even if it's on a project-by-project basis, because I'm still struggling with the $500,000, 1,200 square foot storage building, and how could we have caught that and had that discussion before engineering, before staff bid it out the first time, before staff bid it out the second time, because it's not. A lot of times I feel like we're fighting against staff. I think we're all trying to head in the right direction. We want to get there, but sometimes these things are shockers, and it's not like staff's throwing us curveballs. So I think that those quarterly CIPs is as much as we dig in and analyze the budget now, we need to have that focus at that project level at that point to really say, hey, this is going to move the needle come budget time. Are we sure that we like all these projects and we like the budget amounts and we like the funding source?
Good comment. Yeah. And it is a mountain of numbers and it's a mountain of work. It's a mountain to read. And it's a lot of moving parts, but I think you're right. And to staff's credit, they don't want the curveball either. You know, they've been putting their head down doing, what we've been presenting, and they don't need nor want that curveball at the last minute, but it happens. And you're right, we need to do a better job of not throwing them that curveball. So when and where we can. Any other questions, comments during this public hearing? Seeing none, we will move to new business item number 6. So Mr. Carbone, if you would present that, it's going to be in 2 votes. The first one, vote 1, will simply adopt the budget. So as presented there. And then vote number 2, I'll ask Darren to provide the exact wording.
Thank you, Mayor. So first up, consideration and possible action resolution, or first reading of ordinance 1643. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional staff comment?
No, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate the input. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavarria,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel.
No.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, with that, Mr. Coker, would you provide the language for vote number 2?
Yes, Mayor and council members, Section 102.007 of the Local Government Code requires this separate ratification by voice vote. And so we will need I'd recommend a motion essentially authorizing the separate ratification of the property tax revenue increase reflected in the budget of ordinance number 1643.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Additional staff report?
No, sir.
All right, any other questions, comments from council? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavarria,
Aye.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel.
No.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, both of those, thank you. And thank you all for your comments on all of that. Muchly appreciated. With that, we'll move to Mr. Byram. Would you present item number 7? But before we do, Mr. Coker, do you want to provide the exact language that we need to put out there?
Yes, if you could include in the motion that and you can say it this way. Normally, you would just simply say consideration possible action first reading ordinance number 1642. And then I would say, and I also move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.6350, which is effectively a 5.9200% increase in the tax rate.
So moved.
There we go.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional staff report?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Byram,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Tuman,
Aye.
Member Patel,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Member Chavarria.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right. Thank you for that. We're moving on to item number 8. Ms. Cade, if you'd present it, please.
Consideration and possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1358-30. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
So, Mayor, this is the non-development fee ordinance that we discussed earlier as part of the presentation. So this updates all the fees associated with the budget. Thank you.
Which we've covered. I think they were pretty minor in the grand scheme of things.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, with that, Mr. Tooman, back to you. Item 9, please.
Consideration possible action resolution number R2024-179. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any additional staff report?
No, sir.
All right, with that, questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
Member Patel?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
With that, and back to you, Mr. Patel, if you present item 10, please.
Yes, Mayor. Considering possible action, the first reading of ordinance number 1121-2. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional staff report?
No, sir.
With any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. With that, we move to other business. There was none. Mayor, council issues for city council discussion. There were none. With that, we will move to adjournment at 9:52.